The Tuesday, March 8th, regular meeting of the Fairfield Board of Education is called to order. I'm Christine Vitale, the chair, and I'm joined tonight by Ms. Rotelli, Ms. Jacobson, Ms. Guernsey, Mrs. Gerber, Superintendent Cummings, Mr. Asa, Mrs. Maxicanelli, Mr. Peterson, and Ms. Kelly. I ask you all to please rise for the pledge. Before we hear from our students, I'm just going to ask for the board's unanimous consent to move the update on after-school intervention program to be first on the agenda after public comment. We have some teachers here. We just want them to be able to present and then get home and get well rested for our students tomorrow. So seeing no objection, just there's going to be a change in the order. Okay, and with that, we will go to our students.
All right, good evening, everybody. My name's Aniket. Glad to be back. And I'd like to begin by discussing the No Place for Hate Assembly, which may be happening tomorrow, depending on the weather, for all of our sophomores. It's a program being run by the Anti-Defamation League, and it's a supplement to the Intentional Acts of Respect pledge that they all signed back in December. Upperclassmen and teachers will be working to facilitate small group discussions and a large grade-wide seminar for reflection and learning. On a lighter note, earlier today, Ludlow brought back one of the famed traditions, the junior year badminton tournament. Congratulations to Aaron Field and Alex Moore, the boys and co-ed tournament winners, and Sophia Chelstowski and Ellie Price, the girls tournament winner. Later this month, March 23rd and March 25th, all juniors are going to be taking the school day SAT. It's going to be online for the first time, but students are going to have an opportunity to practice with the interface during their math classes this month. Next week, on March 14th, it's Pi Day, and our Math Honor Society, Mu Alpha Theta, will be running the annual Pi Day activities, which are returning since, I believe, 2019 or 2018 before COVID. Ludlow students can expect a series of math puzzles, question quests around the school, a raffle, and of course, the famous pie eating contest. It should be a great time for everybody. That's all I have for today. I'd like to pass the mic to Reed.
Hello, everyone. My name is Reed Childers. I'm the Senior Board of Ed representative from Ludlow. So the first thing I'd like to report on is our mock trial program. The Fairfield Ludlow mock trial team placed third in the state of Connecticut at the 2022 Civics First Mock Trial Competition. Several of our Ludlow members were recognized for both the Best Lawyer Award and the Best Witness Award statewide. We lost a shot at the championship by only 2 points to Ridgefield. Next, I'm going to share some of the news regarding our sports teams as well as some sports individuals. Starting with our gymnastics team, our girls won the Class L state championship. Senior Ava Golding had the best all-around total of anyone at the entire meet. Our cheerleading team also experienced great victory, winning the co-ed state championship. Most recently, the combined Ludlow and Ward Fairfield hockey team competed in the FCX finals. Fairfield unfortunately lost to Ridgefield, but they have had an incredible season, putting up one of the best records in the history of the program. Lastly, I'd like to give a shout out to Anna Keeley, a senior track star, for winning the Girls New England 1-mile championship. As if this accomplishment is not impressive enough, Keeley actually lost one of her shoes within the first 50 meters of the race, yet still managed to both bring home the gold and achieve a new personal record. That is all I have for you today, and thank you for your time. I'm going to pass the mic to Emma.
Hi everyone, I'm Emma Feckety and I'm a senior student representative for Fairfield Ward High School. This month, Ward hosted a blood drive on March 1st where 50 appointments were made, which resulted in 44 pints of blood donated to the American Red Cross. The opportunity was a great experience for the students and benefited the American Red Cross, who said we far exceeded their expectations. Tomorrow, our College and Career Center will be hosting an information session on both Housatonic and Norwalk Community College. Our junior and senior classes are invited to learn about what each of the schools has to offer, which includes the admissions process as well as clubs and activities. Additionally, tomorrow night, our PTA is sponsoring a virtual program for our freshman and sophomore class describing the Wellness Strategies for Healthy Teens program, which gives approaches such as how to get better sleep, yoga, and even opportunities to hear from other students. This Monday, we are lucky to have Mr. John Halligan speak to our freshman class, where he will share a presentation about suicide prevention and anti-bullying. And our juniors are anticipating their SATs, which will be taking place on March 29th and March 30th. Ward is celebrating Music in Our School Month this March, with performances by our amazing musicians who partake in the Chi M Music Honor Society. They have been performing in our main lobby before school and during all lunch waves every Friday. Moreover, 4 of our Ward students entered excellent entries, made it to state level, and won 2 second place, 1 third place, and 1 in fourth for the PTA Reflections Contest. Congratulations to those students. And wrapping up with a Ward sports update, our boys basketball team is competing in states this Thursday at Ward. Our student section is beyond excited to support our team as they play to win. Congrats to the Fairfield Puck team for making it to FCX and for having an amazing season, as well as to our wrestling 170-pound New England champion, Will Ebert. And congratulations to our girls gymnastics team who won FCX, finished second in the state's Class M, and recently qualified for New England's, which is a first in the program's history. With spring sports starting in the next 2 weeks, Ward students are looking forward to showing continued support for our student athletes as they participate in their sports. Thank you for your time, and as always, go Ward.
Thank you very much for those reports. Any questions for our students? Seeing none, it's nice to see your smiling faces, and you're welcome to stay, but also welcome to take your leave. We won't be offended at all, and thank you again for the update. And with that, we'll move to public comment. At this time, we invite... At this time, we invite members of the public to give comment on agenda items. We will be taking 3 minutes per commenter. So I apologize in advance if I have to cut you off. Oh. We're just going to wait. And please state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. Frank Sahagian, 20 Chelsea Street in Fairfield, retired 8th grade social studies teacher at Fairfield Woods. And Mrs. Vitale, I promise you, you will not have to cut me off. I won't even be close. Seeing again that the update on the middle school block schedule is on the agenda this evening, I'd just like to publicly acknowledge and thank Mr. Cummings and the administrators for being very flexible and listening to the concerns of the teachers. Without question, the biggest concern on the part of the teachers was the wind component incorporated into their schedule. And to all those teachers out there who may be listening, who were fearful that everything was a done deal and their voices would not be heard, hopefully you see things differently now and can approach the pilot that begins tomorrow with an open mind, provide constructive feedback, and have more confidence in administration. I'd call your attention to what is stated on the memo and the agenda, and quote, it says, after consultation with the FEA, the plan to launch a wind period for the 2022-2023 school year has been delayed, with plans to collaboratively develop a system of providing interventions extensions for the 2023-2024 school year. Love that word, collaboratively. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sahagian. Yeah, I know. Congratulations. Anyone else? And just a reminder, we do take public comment before any action items and at the end of the meeting. No calling? Okay. All right. We will move on to the update on after-school intervention program. Dr. Parrish and our secondary school principals, Mr. Cummings, I don't know if you want to give some opening remarks.
Yes, I will be just really brief. I'm going to invite Dr. Parrish and the principals up as well. I believe we have some of our the leadership from each of the buildings, the staff leadership of the programs. Really quick, this is a new initiative, as the board knows, for student supports at the secondary level in grades 6-12. It's being funded at this point by the ARP-ESSER grant. We have taken the approach from the very beginning that this has been a needed resource in the district for some time. We're using the funding to support this, and we have gone in from the beginning with the idea that with what we expect will be the proven success of these interventions, and as the ARP-ESSER funding runs out in a few years, we're going to hopefully be bringing this back as part of our general education budget at that time. We met yesterday. Okay.
My apologies. We were trying to coordinate our presentation.
I know there's not enough chairs for all the good people in the room.
Not enough chairs. But
So we met yesterday with the leadership of each of the programs, and it was really quite inspiring. And as a result of that, we put together a brief PowerPoint to share with you this evening on the after-school program. that we can really speak to as we talk to the program's successes so far. One of the requests from the board has been about data. We are at a point right now where we're able to share with you the attendance data that is from each of the programs, and students who've been invited and how they are attending. We are still working our way through the student achievement data that would come with this, and that will be presented to the board at a later date. But a lot of the information tonight, I think, speaks to what I would characterize as a much-needed focus area, and I cannot thank the administrators for their quick work in turning this program together, but particularly the teachers who are here this evening and the teachers who are working on this program every afternoon, because it really was, it's just going to be terrific for our kids, the kids who need this type of support the most. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cummings. Dr. Parrish?
So I'll be brief, and then I'll turn it over to the building leaders and their sites coordinators for the program. So the Art Besser-funded After School Academy was launched in November of 2021. This group of secondary administrators gathered together with the rest of their school teams to identify a set of criteria to determine which students would be initially invited to the program. And so based on information regarding SRBI status, their assessment scores, so SBA, STAR, PSAT, Lost Links, NGSS, their current and prior year grades, teacher and staff, support staff recommendation, as well as chronic absenteeism rates were the five set of criteria that was initially identified to determine the initial list of students that were going to be invited. And so students had to meet at least 3 of the different sets of criteria that were set amongst those 5 different avenues, and that was the initial list that schools used to reach out to families and students to invite them to the program, as well as use that to identify which staff they would be soliciting to be a part of the program. So at this time, I'm going to actually turn it over to our high school head principals and their site coordinators, followed by the middle school principals and their site coordinators.
So the way we organize the presentation is by slides. So if you can go to the first slide for us. I have it. Ooh, look at that. So this gives the attendance data for both schools. It's a mixture of excused and unexcused absences, and it's broken down by students that are participating. I'll bring back this slide when we go to our middle school colleagues, but I think we'll start with just presentation overview of the programs at each school, then we'll circle back to the attendance for questions. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Hatzis and his supervisor to go through Fairfield Ludlow's program.
Thank you, Mr. Cavanna. Greg Hatzis, head principal of Fairfield Ludlow High School. Just wanted to say thank you to the members of the board and central office for providing this opportunity for us to be able to support a group of students that, traditionally, a lot of people will point out that we might have programs for some of our students who take the most rigorous courses, and we have supports in place for students who might need, additional supports to help them have access to the curriculum. This is for the middle group. And most people, sometimes wonder, what can we do for them? And so this program has had a specific target population, as Dr. Parrish shared. And we are so proud of the progress that they have made and how much the teachers have really bought into it to support them. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Matt Sutton, who's a school counselor with Fairfield Ludlow High School and the principal teacher / coordinator of the program at Ludlow. He's going to share some insights from the teachers and students who are in the program.
Thank you, everyone. So the first 2 slides, we really just tried to share kind of anecdotal evidence of how the program's running. So we collected some stuff from the teachers, their At Ludlow, there's myself and 5 support teachers in 5 different subject areas. And then we also have about 25 students, and you saw the attendance rate before. So we have those 25 show up, and what we do is we pair them up with the 5 teachers, and it's more of a mentor program. And I think what's really important is the relationship piece in this, and really getting to know them. And through the time, these teachers are reaching out to their core teachers during the day and checking in and seeing how they're doing and keeping up with it, reporting back to me. I'm in touch with the parents, and there's really just an accountability piece that I think is really important here, and really just you can tell the progress that they're making, not only in their classes, but just feeling a little bit better about school. And I think that's the overall goal, is feeling that connection to the building, especially after the last couple of years. So, we shared, Lauren Marcello is one of our history teachers that works with our students. The first few minutes of each session is usually designated to kind of organization, executive functioning, and planning, and then we really kind of get to the work, and then they can kind of check in with all of the teachers. Again, we have a math teacher, social studies teacher, science teacher, English teacher present. So, the goal is to kind of get them there and support them any way we can. There's a couple quotes here. I touched base with a few kids to kind of get some feedback, and at about the halfway point, which was kind of mid-January for us, right around the midterm time, I collected some evidence from parents as well to see if they wanted to continue with the program after a few months, to really just get some feedback. So the quotes there, you can read them for yourself, but really I think what I got out of it is it's a place for these kids to not be as distracted, to have someone to check in with, to really feel, again, part of their school. And some of these kids don't have the sports teams or the clubs, and those are other things that we're encouraging them to get involved with, to kind of have that bigger part of the community. But for now, sometimes it's just a place for them to really study and have people for support. So again, we've been pretty happy with that.
I'm honored to introduce Sinead Lutz. Sinead is a science teacher at Fairfield Ward High School, and she leads our mentoring program. She has previous experience running mentoring programs, and I'm very pleased with the work ethic and the vision that she has for the program, and how hard our staff is working to make connections with students who, as mentioned earlier, don't always have a connection to school.
Yes, so our program, very similar to Ludlow, has had great success. We have our program is slightly different, where we pair each individual student with an individual teacher mentor. So each mentor has 2 students that they see, one on Monday, one on Wednesday, and we really felt like we wanted to have a more individualized program, where we had homework help in the past, but it didn't have big draw of students. So we thought we wanted to have something that was slightly different. And, the classroom is not where the kids are really feeling great success, most of them. So we thought if we had something more individualized. And my background, I did run a mentor program at Horizons at Greens Farms Academy, and I was the high school and college coordinator there. And I was a mentor, and I ran the program, and I really saw the impact that had on those Bridgeport Public School students. So I'm seeing something very similar here. We have a staff of 9. And, you can see from the quotes there from our mentor teachers, a lot of them are feeling like what I had felt when I was a mentor in the program that I was in, where it really changes your teaching lens. And that's the teachers that are in the program are feeling that. And the teachers that they're working with of the mentees feel supported as well, because it can feel very isolating, and you really want to support these kids, and now they feel like they have an extra person to support them. So what I've noticed, and you can see from some of the quotes, and when we looked at some mid-year reports from the kids, they all felt empowered. That was the big thing that we found from all of them. They actually felt more empowered to be their own advocate, and that was the biggest turnaround that I've noticed. So we're really happy with what we've been able to do with them, and with the SAT program starting also is something that we're moving in with our juniors. So it has been a great success, and we're really happy to serve this group of kids who are really need that adult, especially after COVID, and really need someone to listen to them. And that's, I think, the biggest takeaway. And I really feel like the kids are truly benefiting from their experience.
So just real quick, as an addendum, we started with the original program, but as we started to think more and had a little more time to process about how to help particular populations within the school, we're thinking about the class of 2023 and their new graduation requirements. And as you well know, one of them is the mastery-based diploma credit, and 0.5 of that is geared around meeting benchmark and the SAT. So we conceived of an idea to help the students who, on the PSAT back in October, had fallen in that approaching range or below benchmark, and we thought that this would be an opportunity to help them get over the hump into the benchmark range. We also wanted to look at particular demographics of students in order to provide them as much support as possible. Those who are eligible for financial support will benefit because as they registered for the May, obviously they'll be taking the March SAT, but we register them for the May SAT, which allows them to get a fee waiver for the test itself. Obviously, the one at school is free already, so this one would be an additional opportunity. As we all know, when students take an SAT for a second time, they often do better just from that test familiarity. But that would be free as a fee waiver, and also when you get an SAT fee waiver, that allows students to get free applications in the fall. I want to give a big shout out to Matt as well in his experience as a counselor and working with students. This became a target goal of our program, and that was a fantastic opportunity. We have partnered with Alpha Prep, and those of you that have been involved in the PTA for a long time know that Alpha Prep has served the students in Fairfield for a long time through our PTA SAT tutoring programs, and they were extremely wonderful partners through all this in giving us a lot of attention and a favorable opportunity to be able to engage with them and have our students take advantage. So I'm going to let Matt talk a little bit about the nuts and bolts of how it's happening.
Thanks. So Greg mentioned a lot of kind of getting it together. It was kind of a little short notice because it kind of came to me really at the last second, but I think what was important was how flexible Alpha Prep was and how experienced they are with this group of students, and that's why I really wanted to partner with an outside organization, because I knew, especially those new graduation requirements. As a counselor, I started to really look at that and helping current juniors with the college planning process. I also kind of know with these new graduations, they're the first class, and so there's a lot to that, and I think I wanted to make sure that those kids were supported, especially as they're kind of doing that approaching benchmark. Not only do I want them to graduation requirement, but again, Greg mentioned, the super score idea, so having multiple scores and to possibly send to colleges. Luckily, a lot of schools are going test optional these days, but at the same time, having that choice for the student, I think, is big. And I think having multiple scores under their belt is just helpful for them. We're in our third session. We've had 100% attendance so far. I know Ward is kind of getting it up and going on Monday, and we've kind of been partnering with them, and we're all going to get it together. So it's actually going to be something we're going to do together with Alpha Prep. So I think we're really excited that obviously the March one's around the corner, so we're hoping those scores will improve from their PSAT, but our focus was probably that May and or June test to try to increase those scores as well and to try to get them over those benchmarks.
And we're just thankful to collaborate with Ludlow on this initiative to help support our students as well. And both site supervisors really work collaboratively together to give this experience to both high school students. So we're very excited to be a part of this, and we thank our colleagues at Ludlow for this great opportunity.
So before we have the middle school come up, I just wanted to go back to the slide because one of the things the board has asked for a few times is the program attendance data. This is not attendance to school. This is the program attendance. So this information provides you with, in addition to attendance, beyond the SAT program, the initial students that were invited to the program and those who actually accepted that invitation and their attendance rate within the program itself. So you can see between the two schools, disaggregated by grade, what that rate is. And then, of course, with the launch of the SAT prep program, that additional information is provided for the high schools. And we have similar information provided for the programs at each of the 3 middle schools as well. So that's the subsequent slide that, again, provides you with the number of students invited and those that are accepted, recognizing that all 5 schools were conducting rolling invitations in terms of communicating with parents and families about this open opportunity and really trying to get students excited about taking ownership of their learning beyond the school day and being an active part of developing a plan of support for themselves. And so this will continue throughout the course of the year. It has continued, and like I said, all 5 schools have engaged in repeated rolling invitations to students to get them to participate in this program. Now we'll have the middle school come up.
Colleen Bannock, principal of Fairfield Woods, and I'm here with Mark Drexel, who is a teacher at Ward, but was nice enough to come down and be our site coordinator. We're thrilled to be here with you this evening. It's just such a unique opportunity to highlight an innovative program that really celebrates the success of our students. So we thank you for that opportunity. I'm going to leave it to Mark to explain to you kind of the vision for the program, and thank you.
Sure. So my name is Mark Drexel. I'm a teacher at Ward High School, but I've been working with Colleen at Woods since really we got the program up and running. Our vision for the program was to first begin with like 6-week sessions, kind of as like an intervention style program, where we would go and invite students that were recommended from the SRBI team there by grade level. So first 8th grade, then 7th grade, then 6th grade. Our 7th grade cohort was a little bit larger, so we've had 2 sessions of students there. But over the now 4 sessions that we've run, we've really prioritized that school connectedness piece that Matt spoke about from the high school, building relationships, executive functioning skills, and we've moved from like an academics first program to like a student first program, and that change has really helped us create a space for students where they want to come after school. They're there at 2:55 rather than 3, and they've created relationships with each other and with the staff there. So it's a way to make a big school a little bit smaller and prioritize that community piece there. So some of the things that we've noticed. And this is our little fast facts, our students reported data. 70% of them feel like they've seen improvements in a specific skill, 80% feel like they have sustained improvement in organization, and 100% of them feel like their work completion is getting better. So all good things there. We really try to make this program about the student first. So we always start with kind of a little 10 minutes of community building. What went well today? What are your goals for today? What do you have coming up in the future? And we really make them the focus of the program. So we highlight their voice, their own agency, and if I could see the quotes there, I'd read them to you, but I can't. But the other piece of this is, and to what Matt spoke about, my role really is working with the parents and creating that whole community approach. So the student is feeling like they're supported from their classroom teachers, from the staff at the after-school program, and then their parents as well. So it's a way to just wrap the whole community around the student. And the parents have been incredibly thankful for the opportunity and feeling like their students have been prioritized not only by the school, but by the school board in the district. So it's really been a wonderful whole community approach for us.
And I would just finish by saying that there were at least 2 occasions when Mark looked up at the start of the program in the afternoon, and there were several new students there who had not registered and just showed up because they wanted to be there. And then Mark was able to connect with those parents and bring those kids into the program. So that is the best advertisement, especially for a group of middle school students.
Hello, everyone. Meg Tiley, Principal, Roger Ludlow Middle School. I will be honest and admit that I was excited about this program when we were approached with this idea and this grant. I was very nervous about staffing it and making it happen and doing it well. My first order of business was bringing our program director, Erin Lichtenstein, on board to lead this program. She is one of our amazing special education teachers at Roger Ludlow Middle School. She very quickly went out on the sales gravy train and recruited our SRBI coordinator and many other Roger Ludlow Middle School staff members across subject areas. And if I can say, including a retired teacher, that's the back of Dave Lazar. Those of you that had kids at Ludlow, you would know who that is. He came running back to help, and kids love Mr. Lazar and seeing him back in the program. I would echo the thread that you hear around collaboration, not only teacher to teacher, but teacher to student, and that small feeling of community. But I cannot sell this program as well as Erin can, so I will turn it over.
Hi, everybody. I'm Erin Lichtenstein. Thanks for having us here tonight to boast really about the programs that have evolved at all of the schools. And one of the most profound parts of listening to each program's structure and just the way in which we're approaching supporting students is that the narrative is pretty similar despite the organic nature of how this program came about. And so in addition to all of my colleagues, what they have shared, which I will definitely say reflects what we're seeing at Roger Ludlow, the other piece that I want to kind of share that has evolved organically is this idea of not only collaboration but partnerships. The type of, going into this, we thought this was going to be an academic emphasis on supporting students, and really it's become a wraparound support opportunity for the students who have enrolled in the program. And as someone stated earlier, there is rolling invitations to join the program, which I think was important to build the momentum and the steam that we needed to make this a successful opportunity for students. What I didn't anticipate was, like Mr. Drexel said, kids showing up who were not part of the invite list, who we embraced nonetheless and were ready to receive nonetheless, but also the partnerships that have been created between the staff. There are 6 of us at Roger Ludlow who are supporting the program. The after-school program staff, in conjunction now with developing relationships with the teachers that the kids see on a daily basis. And one of the most profound outcomes that I didn't anticipate was how the students' buy-in has become apparent because they're seeing how many adults in their lives care for them. It's our staff working with their regular, daily teachers, working with the parents, and they know they have a team of adults who are behind them. And again, I don't think this started out with the vision of a mentorship program, but what is happening is kids who might not have felt seen before are feeling very seen and very supported. So, as we continue to evolve the program, one of my biggest takeaways is that these kids needed someone to believe in them, and they really feel it, and it's tangible to them, and more importantly, they're seeing the outcomes in their academics. So it was kind of a reverse outcome that I had anticipated. So thank you for providing this opportunity for all of our students here in Fairfield, and I look forward to sharing out with you again sometime in the future.
Anthony Formato, principal at Tomlinson Middle School, and I'm here with Jamie Klein, our site coordinator. And I would echo a lot of what the other schools are saying. We came off the summer boost idea with our program, and we tried to get started as quickly as possible because we know we have a great need in this area. And I really respect Jamie for taking this and really running with it with a really great organization, a passion to help students and to work with teachers. And she got a lot of teachers on board very quickly, got organized very quickly, and really got the supports in place. It was really an impressive endeavor that she took on. So thank you to Jamie for that. And we really have gotten a lot of kids excited about the program, and that's because Jamie has evolved the program, changed to meet the needs of the kids, and that continues to evolve as we go forward. So I'll hand it over to Jamie Klein.
Hi, I'm Jamie Klein. I'm a science teacher, 6th grade at Tomlinson. And the program at Tomlinson, we call it the After School Thunderbirds. And to begin, we had 5 teachers, and we have snack in the cafeteria, and the kids would come and have their snack and kind of chit-chat and have 10 minutes of downtime. But it turned into almost a little community, and we sit at a table together, and they started talking about, okay, well, I have a project in science, or I need to study for the math test. And then they started to evolve and tell me, oh, can I go with a high school tutor? I really want to get an A on my social studies work. And the students started taking more ownership. And it is homework support, but their success in class has been driving them to come back because their confidence is increasing. And I have some quotes from the students. When I asked them what's something they like, I started interviewing and doing goal sessions with the kids individually. And they were saying that they can get their work done. It's a quiet place. They feel more comfortable in a 5-to-1 asking questions when they don't understand. Saba saw his grades started to go up when he was staying after school more consistently. One student was saying that she really struggled with solving equations, and she stayed after school on a Monday, and the next day in class she was able to raise her hand and answer, and she felt so much more confident. So it's driving the students to come back, and we're hoping to get more and more enrollment as the sessions continue. Thank you.
And just to finish up, I'd just like to say if this funding continues, we know that we can anticipate this as a tool that we can continue to evolve and add resources like they're doing at the high school. We could also do that. We have tutors coming in now, and if we know this is going to continue, then we can just keep growing the program to meet the needs of our kids. So thank you, guys.
Thank you for that presentation. I'm sure there's probably some questions, so I will take it to the board for any questions. Mr. Asa.
Thank you all for that very in-depth presentation. I am very excited at the work that's being done with the students that are participating. I do have a couple questions regarding some of the numbers. On the first high school attendance, I noticed that in the Ludlow column, they've broken out the SAT prep students, but in the Ward, it looks like it's included in there, but in parentheses. So just to clarify, was it really 18 that accepted if you take out the SAT prep in the very bottom?
Ward's program starts on Monday, so we don't have attendance for our students in the Ward program yet. So that's just our students in the program that are juniors prior. So we'll include that in the next month's update.
Possible spots for the SAT prep, but we are just getting our enrollment together now, and we are starting Monday. So we currently have 4 juniors in our program.
Okay, thank you. So the number at the bottom though is active overall for all 4 grades.
Yes.
Okay, so moving to the middle school.
Mr. Asa, just to clarify, we'll adjust though when the new students on Monday enter into the new juniors enter into the program. Just I want to make sure that's clear.
Yeah. No, I'm getting to something. And then with the middle school, just out of curiosity, when I look at the total numbers, so I look at Tomlinson of 115 invited versus Woods at 57, without getting into detailed specifics, is there any way to elaborate on why such a literally double the number of invited students at one school versus the other?
We were following our list of 5 criterion, and so those were the students that met that criterion. That's the simplest answer.
We were also following, and we had a higher number of students that qualified.
Okay. So when I look at the numbers, though, I look at, at the middle school, it looks like roughly 52%, and at the high school, 65% of those invited not enrolled. So, and instead of looking at that as a negative, I'm curious, have we done anything yet, or is it too soon to try and learn from those who have not accepted, and maybe why, and are there things that we can be doing proactively to get more engaged? Because it seems like a wonderful program.
I can start on that one for you, Mr. Asa. Part of the, some of the reasons that we received back from families were, it was a lot of gratitude, but we have all these after-school commitments, and we're really not able to do that. So that really accounts for the vast majority of no's that we've received. It's just things conflict in the afternoon, but we do not stop inviting those families every time we send out invites. So the invite never goes away. So should those commitments fall away, we're happy to have those kids.
Yeah, so that brings up an interesting point, because one of the things that I heard in the presentation was a lot of these kids that are in the program maybe don't have those after-school activities. Did I hear that correctly? Like they don't have as much engagement or are involved with something. So that's definitely something interesting to look at and how we tackle that. So I appreciate the proactive work moving forward going into that, because just because they have activities to fill their time schedules doesn't mean that they're necessarily thriving. So. I think I might have one or two more, but I'll turn it over to my fellow board members while I...
Mr. Telly?
Sure. Is this a 5-day-a-week for middle school and high school, or just 2 days?
2 days.
So could a student who is invited attend just one of the 2 days, or do they have to commit to the 2 days?
So our students their commitment is 1 hour a week, so they only come either a Monday or a Wednesday. 1 hour a week.
We went the model because the ratio is a little different in terms of, instead of the 1-to-1, or it's the 5-to-1. So we do expect the students to come both days, and, they understand that we are taking attendance, and, we felt like that would just add to the consistency. So it's a different approach, but I think both have their strengths in terms of the type of attention that the students get.
Most of our students in the middle school program do come both days.
We encourage the both days to come, but if they only come one day, we're going to take what we can get because we want the students to get the help that they need.
Anything else? Good. Mr. Asa.
So I made a note during the presentation, I think it was for Roger Ludlow, talking about kids that were not invited showing up. That's correct. Just out of curiosity, have you had time or been able to explore why maybe they took an interest but weren't identified or invited originally, and do the ones that are coming that weren't originally on the list continue? Are they holding steady?
So to answer your initial question, I think that word of mouth got around, like my buddies go into the program. I also think that there might have been, for some confusion about homework club versus this after-school program. So, being that it is a program that requires certain criteria to be met, I was, trying to balance that. And in the end, it's all about supporting students. And as the program evolved, I realized that, perhaps they might be missing one of the criteria, it's an all-inclusive kind of opportunity. So I resolved to never turn anyone away, obviously following up with the team who made the initial recommendations to kind of see where the student was holding, to see where they would fit within the group and their needs. And then obviously connecting with parents to make sure that they understood it was a commitment. So, you know, initially I was surprised and didn't know what to do. But over time, again, with the evolution of the program in general, even yesterday I had somebody show up who will now be participating on a regular basis. So, you know, it kind of happened by accident, happy accident, I guess.
Okay, but I guess have there been any instances where we've learned that maybe did we miss something, or is there something that we should be adding to the criteria based on this additional enrollment or show-ups, if you want to call them?
I don't think we've come to that conclusion yet. I would only add at Ludlow, and I believe all of us, we are sending out another tier of invitations this week. It continues to roll. And as far as following up on those students that we invited and either didn't hear a response or weren't sure, as Mrs. Bannock already said, the invitation stands, it's open. We can be a little bit naggy with parents from phone calls, emails, letters. If you come through my pickup line and I know you're eligible for the program, I say, roll the window down, let's talk. So we capture on all fronts wherever we can.
All right.
And if I could just make one more comment regarding students who have not accepted the invitation, some of the feedback that I've gotten is that parents had pursued tutoring opportunities outside of the school. And one of the things that actually with 2 students had happened is it didn't end up looking and sounding the way I think the student and the parent had anticipated, and they ended up coming back and saying, does this invitation still stand? And so, you know, 2 of our 23 now students, that was the circumstance there. So there are various reasons that the invitation is declined, but clearly we've created a culture and an opportunity that they know that they are welcome at any time. And same goes for the 2-day a week commitment. That is what we strive for consistency and fidelity, but we also understand that personalized learning is essential to the outcome, the positive outcome of this program. And so, you know, it's not an option to say, nope, you have to come 2 days or you can't come at all. So we also have students coming 1 day a week as opposed to both days a week.
Thank you for those answers. And I look forward to following this and updates in the future as we try and determine, you know, what are the benchmarks that we want to hit in order to continue funding a program like this, because grant money will only go so far. So I know not everything is always measurable in you know, black and white scores and numbers and graphs, but looking forward to learning more about this as it goes. Thank you.
Ms. Kelly.
First, I just wanted to say thank you for the presentation, because I think I was the one who was annoying and asking a lot of questions about the data. This is really helpful because it is completely not what I thought the program was going to be. When we talk about it from a dollars and cents grant, when it's just in front of us on the page, it's just addressed as, this is money we're using to spend to address learning loss. So in my mind, it was completely different. We were targeting specific areas. In my mind, there was a specific curriculum that was being followed. You are weak in X, Y, and Z, and we're going to get you caught up because of COVID, and that's that. So this was just very helpful to hear that it's become more than that. And I just want to say thank you for that.
Ms. Mascanelli.
One question I had regarding back to Mr. Ace's point about the criteria. Despite our high schools being almost twice as big, there were far fewer invites. And I was wondering if, you know, is there something about the target that's different? Were you deliberately trying to be more selective, or how do you explain that?
No, great question. I think we realized we had a great opportunity on our hands, and we also, you know, thought in the time frame that we had, tried to think very carefully about what the structure of that would look like that would be successful. So I think like we took an improvement science approach in starting small, targeted, focused, run it through a few cycles to see, where can we do better? What criteria can we expand upon? The criteria are broad enough that we can continue, and we knew we were going to continue, as Dr. Parrish talked about earlier, to have sort of an open and rolling admissions. A lot of the feedback that we got at the high school level, and Paul and I had talked about it, but students work. And that's a big part of as they, especially as they get into their junior senior year, that becomes a big moment in their lives where they've been looking forward to working after school to get money to pay for their cars, et cetera. So we were battling some of that. We also had student involvement with the winter sports season, so some of those students are going to become more available. So sometimes the targets were based on what we already knew was the case with students. We had counselors meet individually with the students or call home to get some of that feedback. It's going to evolve, and I know it will grow from here. So we chose some elements of the criteria as our priority, and then as we go, we will expand in other areas of that criteria to grow the program.
At Ward, we took a different approach, in brainstorming with Sinead on, what we wanted to do with these funds. We really tried to model it specifically after the internship, the mentorship program that she did in her previous employment. So I'll have her explain that a little bit, but we really looked at, how do we have an adult that can have a strong connection with a student who needs that strong connection to help them not only get through high school, but get through their whatever grade they're in. So the Ward program is not about overall, swaths of numbers of students. It's about isolating a specific amount of student, putting them specific with a mentor, and trying to help them through their high school experience, because they're great students, but they have, the home involvement, and they could use some additional support. So I'll have Sinead explain a little more detail.
So our guidance counselors were the individuals who suggested the students for the program, and those are the students that received the invites. So many of the invites that were not returned were really parents that just did not respond to us after numerous attempts, to get their child enrolled in the program. So these were the responses that we received, worked with the guidance counselors and made sure that, they met the criteria that we were looking for and some of the same, parameters that we all used. And the students were then, they were given a contract. We really wanted them to see this program as like a real honor that you were selected to be part of this program, and we're here to support you, throughout your high school year and hopefully, further years. And that's really what we have done. And the parents were involved in that as well, permission and knowing that this is what we were setting up for them, that they were assigned a mentor. And we thought that having the 1 hour a week commitment would really pull the kids in, that they knew that this is all they really had to give us, and if they wanted more, they're welcome to come both days. And we do have students that do come both days because they know they can tap in to one of our subject-specific teachers. But that was sort of our mindset, that we really wanted them to have a very individualized approach and have this one person that's really, supporting them and having this connection.
Thank you. I was wondering, are the 2 days a week, is that determined by virtue of the after-school bus availability? Was that the reason for the 2 days? Yeah?
Yes.
So, in fact, it couldn't grow 2 more days because we are restricted by the transportation issue?
That's correct. We would take 5 days if we could.
Okay. And something that...
I think it also might be the staffing allocation for budget. So I think we budgeted for 2 days a week with the staffing. Zakiya, am I correct about that?
We're also limited by the fact that there are faculty meetings on Tuesdays, so we're not able to run the program if staff is in professional learning. So that takes one of the days out of the, the circulation already. And looking at which days to add the program, some of the middle schools already had existing after-school programs, so in some of the cases, they added an extra days to an existing day so that there were opportunities for them to participate in some of the intramural activities as well as some of the other clubs in addition to participating in this program. So we wanted to make sure that it wasn't restrictive so that they only were able to participate in this, but they also were able to engage in some of the other activities that take place on the non-Tuesdays or the non-after-school academy days.
Thank you. So speaking about future going forward, the one thing that, and I would agree with Ms. Kelly, the one thing that was interesting to hear about this is that there was certainly the through line of this was as much a support of especially executive functioning, where I also had thought this was going to be much more subject area specific. And in fact, an awful lot of the comments, with a few exceptions, really sound like you don't necessarily need a subject area person, like 5 subject area people, that's not how it's kind of evolving. And so I would just be curious, because obviously at some point if this were to continue, it's going to have significant budget implications. Do you see something like the National Honor Society program at the 2 high schools, which has a mandatory tutoring requirement? Do you see that as being something that could begin to evolve as providing additional support for this?
Yeah, as I mentioned before, that's some of the students do come down from Ludlow, and they do support our students, and that's been established for a long time, even before I came 6 years ago. So that the answer is yes.
Okay, thank you. Hold on, a few more questions. For the Alpha Prep, so first of all, the students that were identified for the SAT support, are all of those students presently not meeting the graduation requirement?
That is correct. Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, and what we have essentially contracted for Alpha Prep to take those students. Is that correct?
Yeah, so they're doing both Monday and Wednesday virtually for an hour, but they do stay at the school, and we provide the Chromebooks, and they're in the library, and we have a staff looking over them. So it's kind of like we get them to come in, we get them checked in, we get them signed on. I'm in touch with the people of Alpha Prep. They send over the link. I get everyone going and up and going. We also provided some books for the kids, and it's recorded. And so then after each session too, they get like all the work that they did, so that the kids can look back at the material. So early on, it's been extremely helpful.
Okay, thank you. Hold on, I think that might be it for me. Yeah, that's it for me. Thank you so much.
Anyone else? Mr. Talley.
I just wanted to say how nice it was to hear about all the comments about the partnerships and the collaborations. Someone talked about how nice it was that these students felt they had a team of adults behind them, and they felt seen and supported. And I think it really does speak to these kids coming off the past 2 years and the struggles of the pandemic and the isolation. And it's so nice to hear them responding in this way. And I did notice, along with some of my other board members, especially I think it was in the Woods pages about the executive function comments, the staying organized and focused. And I just, and helping these kids navigate. I know it's not only these kids who need that, obviously. So I'm just curious. I know that there's work that's gone on during the day for executive function help, but I would imagine that this just speaks more and more to how can we bring that help into the regular school day for everyone. Because I think those tools that are being, that these kids will be getting in this program would clearly probably be helpful for everyone, trying to manage and getting back to normal in school and feeling like they can, the sort of being overwhelmed with the amount of work and how to organize that work and how to stay focused. Just so I'm sure you guys are working on that anyway, but I just figured that this will probably be a big takeaway from this program too, and how to incorporate that back into the regular school day for everyone.
Just picking back on that a little bit, just in terms of data collection, what do you see as a measure? We have this program, and I think, like Ms. Kelly said, many board members, when we first heard about it, was thinking that it was going to be very subject-specific, tutoring, like this is what math lesson and everybody's coming for after-school help, and it's wonderful to hear that it has grown into that, but I do see it as a learning opportunity for you. I'd be curious to know if there were any surprises in terms of needs. You've already identified these students, for academic need. Is there anything, any need that's consistent across all levels that maybe was surprising? And I'm not looking for an answer for that right now, but just in terms of, learning about our kids, that this is an opportunity where teachers, adults, and students are spending time together and creating new relationships, that there might be an opportunity for saying, well, this is something that surprised to see happening, and maybe we should be bringing it into the school day. And any, sure?
I just want to say at the core of it, it's about relationships. And I think what we're seeing early on is that kids who feel supported, want to come back to school. And I think that you heard it from all of the team members. And again, we've barely communicated from school to school, but that all of our messages tonight were pretty similar. I think speaks volumes to what we're trying to do. And, just as an example, I have a second semester senior who's still coming. That speaks volumes. A lot of those kids are, graduation's around the corner, and, they still want to be there, and they feel connected, and they feel like someone's listening to them. And I think that really, they're off to college, already in college. There's things that they're already doing, but they want to be there. And I think that's an important piece.
Well, for just school climate, having a trusted adult, that connection to one adult in the building just makes such a difference on so many levels. Mr. Hatzis, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's okay. I just was going to add really quickly. I think when, as educators, we talk about social emotional learning, this is exactly what it looks like and when it's done well. When students can grow in their own self-awareness of what their own strengths are, because they were always there, but by having that relationship with that adult and they're able to realize it and be more organized, it's self-management skills where they start to understand how to not just, it's the old adage about, teach a man to fish. And, these students are now learning the skills that they can take with them and apply to other aspects of their lives, not just school. So there's a lot of those things that are taking place that really solidify their learning for the future as well.
Thank you. Do you foresee attendance, comparing attendance at school? I don't know if any of these students had attendance issues before, becoming more engaged. I know we have attendance for the program, but just for the regular school day. Be curious if you've looked at that, or is that something, a way of measuring just engagement, not only with the program itself, but with school in general? And with that, I will.
Yeah. The answer is yes.
Yes.
I think the overall goal is to get them here. And I think if we, as teachers, counselors, if we feel like that we can get their feet in the building, we can do a lot of good work. And I think that's really the ultimate goal.
I guess what I'm asking for, I would like to see that maybe measured at some point, just saying, this was before, this was after.
Yes, so our plan is to use the same measures that we set as criteria for identification for the program to measure progress with the progress of the program, or progress of the students in the program.
Thank you. Mr. Cummings?
Thank you. Just a couple summary thoughts. I think the presenters tonight spoke very well, but a couple pieces I just want to wrap up. First of all, I want to say that at 11 o'clock yesterday morning, we met in this room. The site supervisors, our teacher leaders, had no idea that they were coming to the board meeting. There was no PowerPoint, so I cannot thank them enough. And I think that exhibition of work, as it were, and their words tonight are the best testament you can hear, or the most valuable testament you can hear to the value of the program. I cannot thank you enough for not only the last 30 hours, but obviously the work that's gone into this from the fall forward. A couple other points. When you think about the challenges, we've talked about the challenges, just the idea of saying to anybody between the ages of 12 and 18, hey, would you like to spend another hour after school? Right. I know that we are offering food. I understand at Fairfield Woods the Cheez-Its are quite a draw, but the challenges that faces, and the fact that these kids are coming And you know, and I cannot emphasize enough, and these are the words that I use, but essentially, we are building something that this district has not seen before at the secondary level. And our teachers are building that. And, you know, we are, you know, I think the approach here is that we've taken from the very beginning with this is we're going to go slow to go fast. Like, we have to build this. We have to understand what works. And the board has commented on that. It was, when we initially presented this idea to you, it was about addressing learning loss. I think it's still about addressing learning loss, but it's very clear that it's been said many times tonight, and I can't do justice to the way it's been said, but it was, as Matt just used the word, relationships. It's about these connections in this community. And I think that we, as a school system and as a board, need to think about what does that tell us about how the development of community and relationships is central as the unlocking of the door to student success. Without that happening, these kids would not be able to move forward. And so the ability outside of the school day in a smaller setting and in a lower teacher-student ratio, that is central to what is happening and what will continue to happen. And as has been said, even just as reference to the PSAT, or the SAT program tonight, this program will continue to evolve at each level. Each school will continue to evolve to meet its needs. We are going to be monitoring the information because we do believe that this program should live past, this approach to kids needs to live past the ARPESR deadline. So again, I really cannot thank you enough, guys, tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Cummings. Thank you, and please extend our thanks to all of the teachers that volunteer to participate in this program after school. It's been, you know, a long couple of years for everybody, so I think it just speaks to the dedication of our staff to our students. So thank you, and we look forward to hearing more. Okay, so we will, moving on to status update. Social Studies curriculum, Dr. Zavajanczyk, Ms. Oliveri. Okay, we're going to turn it over. No opening remarks from the superintendent, so we'll get right to the presentation.
Good evening, James Zavajanczyk, Executive Director of Instruction, Curriculum, and Assessment. And this evening, I am joined by Ms. Oliver, our Program Director of Social Studies and Student-Centered Learning, who will lead you in the discussion and presentation of our Social Studies status update of our curriculum that was presented and improved in 2016. Our teacher teams throughout the district, as well as in our social studies department, continue to examine the practices, the instructional practices, the materials, and the implementation to learn from, replicate, and connect instruction in their classes, as well as in an interdisciplinary nature. Ms. Oliver has worked with the K-12 department, high school, middle school, and elementary school, to develop tonight's summary of the approved curriculum and its implementation since 2016. I will turn the presentation over to you. She is joined by a number of teachers in the district who she will introduce as well. So thank you for your time to introduce us, and we'll have a question and answer period at the end.
Thank you. Hello, Lisa Oliver, Director of Social Studies and Student-Centered Learning. It's in a moment, I'm going to have some of my colleagues introduce themselves. I just want to say it's a pleasure to be here tonight on this very special day, March 8th, International Women's Day. We are here tonight to present you with a status update for pre-K through 12 social studies, and I'll have my colleagues introduce themselves.
Hi, everybody. My name is Lenny Muytozo.
I teach 7th grade at Roger Ludlow Middle School. I've had the pleasure of having several of your children as my students, and I also am a parent in the district. I have a 7-year-old who's a 1st grader at Jennings, and a soon-to-be a 2nd Jennings Jaguar. My 3-year-old will be there in a couple years.
Hi, my name is Colleen Souza, and I am the Social Studies Department Liaison at Fairfield Ludlow High School. I've been a teacher there for 17 years, and I also am a parent in the district. I have a 6th grader at Fairfield Woods and a soon-to-be kindergartner at Holland Hill.
Hi, my name is Joelle Kilcourse. I'm the Library Media Specialist at the wonderful Riverfield School here in Fairfield, and this is my 8th year in the district.
Hi, my name is Tara Tejan. I'm a 4th grade teacher at Riverfield School, and this is my 4th year teaching in Fairfield.
Thank you very much. Let me just coordinate here for a second. There we go. Okay, for those folks watching from home, Fairfield Public Schools curriculum renewal is on a 10-year cycle, as indicated on this status update chart. The pre-K through 12 social studies curriculum was formally revised and approved by the Board of Education in 2016. The next time the social studies curriculum will be up for its formal revision and approval by the Board of Ed will be in 2025, 2026, as indicated here in green. This year, we're here to provide a curriculum status update, showcase some student and some teacher work and successes, as well as share some opportunities for growth. So as far as tonight is concerned, we thought that these 4 guiding questions listed on this slide might provide some organization and an outline to providing this information to the Board of Ed tonight. First, what changes were made to the social studies curriculum in 2016? What has been done to implement the revised curriculum? What evidence has been collected to indicate student growth or achievement? And then finally, what next steps are we considering? So much of the Fairfield Public Schools pre-K through 12 social studies curriculum that was approved and implemented beginning in 2016 is anchored in the C3 frameworks. So the purpose of the national C3 frameworks is to provide a social studies education that prepares our students across the country for college, career, and civic life. The C3 frameworks are aligned with the Common Core state standards in ELA, history and social studies. The state standards provide clear expectations of what students should know and be able to do at each grade level. They outline vital literacy skills in reading, writing, speaking, and listening that can be consistently and comprehensively found in social studies classrooms across all grade levels. So social studies provides students with ample opportunities to also master some of the academic expectations we have outlined here. Expectations like exploring and understanding, evaluating and synthesizing, conveying ideas, which are all part of Fairfield's vision of a graduate. So preparing our students for college, career, and civic life is accomplished through, a variety of different methods, but what is important is the inquiry arc, which we have illustrated here. And there are 4 dimensions of the inquiry arc. We know that people learn history, and students learn history best when it's taught through an investigative lens. So like the practices of real historians and geographers, economists, and political scientists. As indicated on the slide, first we have the number 1 dimension, which is developing questions and planning inquiries. Dimension 2 is applying the lenses of civics, economics, geography, and history into the inquiry process. Dimension 3 is evaluating sources and using evidence. It focuses on seeking out credible sources. It is not simply identifying bias in sources and authorship. It's also distinguishing between fact and fabrication, and reporting and commentary. It also involves developing claims and supporting those claims with evidence. The last, but certainly not the least, is Dimension 4, which is communicating conclusions and taking informed action. Informed action may be writing a research paper or a letter to the local newspaper. It may involve engaging in discourse with classmates, creating a podcast, producing an exhibit, or a documentary film. It's important that these actions are relevant in real world. The core of the C3 frameworks is to cultivate citizens who are well-informed and engaged in their local community as well as their global community. So we have here the Connecticut Social Studies frameworks. They were adopted in 2015 by the State Board of Education. And they were guided by the C3 frameworks and the inquiry standards. And they offered Fairfield another layer of support when developing the curriculum in 2016. The Connecticut Social Studies frameworks helped Fairfield establish a vertical alignment of skills and concepts from pre-K throughout high school. On the left side, you'll see the state frameworks, and on the right side, you see the curricular focus areas of each elementary grade level at Fairfield beginning in 2016. The two run parallel, although the titles on each elementary grade level may look slightly different. The essential questions, the enduring understandings, and the inquiry arc are the same. As students progress through grade levels, their sense of community expands from family outward to town, state, nation, and the world. In middle school, students take World Regional Studies in 6th and 7th grade, U.S. History in 8th grade. Then in 9th grade, they take Global Studies, 10th grade, Modern Global Studies, 11th grade, they move on to U.S. History, as well as they have a wide variety of civics options to take as juniors and seniors. In the next 3 slides and over the next few minutes, my colleagues will walk us through what those curricular revisions look like in practice as implemented at the elementary, middle, and high school grade levels.
Good evening. In grade 4, the overall goal of the social studies curriculum is to engage students in the study of local and United States geography as it relates to the cultural, economic, and political development of the United States. This approach supports an in-depth inquiry through the examination and evaluation of multiple sources and allows students to explore Fairfield and regions of the United States supported by the disciplines of history, civics, and economics.
So what does this look like in practice? We will answer this by taking a look at the teaching and learning that takes place during trimester 1 when grade 4 students focus on a regional study of indigenous peoples of the United States. Our overall compelling question is, how does where people live affect how they live and have lived in the past? And within this overarching question, students conduct a variety of investigations that focus on questions about history.
What do we mean when we talk about a country's culture? And how is a region shaped by historical events?
Civics.
How do the beliefs, values, and laws differ amongst indigenous peoples living within the various regions of the U.S.?
Economics.
How did the use of their regional resources affect the way the indigenous people lived?
And geography.
How did the geography and climate affect their culture? And what can be learned about the indigenous people from topographical maps of the United States of America?
As students investigated these questions, they engaged in many rigorous learning opportunities. They developed their own supporting questions by engaging with a variety of print and digital resources, which included informational texts like articles and movies, maps, and even folklore. They worked collaboratively in small groups to determine what information is essential when learning about specific tribal regions. They used multiple sources for research. They synthesized information, used Google Slides to create presentations, and shared their learning with an authentic audience, their classmates. A plethora of the C3 inquiry standards and corresponding Connecticut core standards are embedded into this unit. But the standards emphasized in this unit are
Dimension 1, developing questions and planning inquiry.
Determine the kinds of sources that will be helpful in answering compelling questions and supporting questions, taking into consideration the different opinions people have about how to answer the questions.
Dimension 2, applying disciplinary concepts and tools.
Explain connections among historical contexts and people's perspectives at the time.
Dimension 3, evaluating sources and using evidence.
Identify evidence that draws information from multiple sources in response to compelling questions.
Dimension 4, communicating conclusions and taking informed action.
Present a summary of arguments and explanations to others outside the classroom using print and oral technologies such as posters, essays, letters, debates, speeches, and reports, and digital technologies such as internet, social media, and digital documentary.
And library learning time, which is the class time in which I, as a library media specialist, engage with students. We continue to build upon these skills. Students worked independently to create informational podcasts about the ongoing contributions of Indigenous peoples. They work with the intention of creating a product for our K-5 community of learners. The standards emphasized here were Dimension 3, use distinctions between fact and opinion to determine the credibility of multiple sources, as well as Dimension 4. Present a summary of arguments and explanations to others outside the classroom using print and oral technologies, like essays, posters, letters, debates, speeches, and digital technologies, the internet, and digital documentary.
Moving forward, we would like to increase our opportunities for cross-curricular integration between classroom teachers and the library media specialist.
Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciated the tag team. You can tell you work so closely together. Thanks so much. It's lovely. Thanks.
Hi again, everybody. Like I said, Lenny Muytozo, I teach 7th grade at Roger Little Middle School. 22 years I've been teaching, and 21 has been in this class. And so I love it, and I had the pleasure to work with lots of great team members and department members, and everything we do is years of love that we put into it. So this is just a quick example that I'd like to share about. Actually, it's the unit that we're doing right now in grade 7, Social Studies, which is Sub-Saharan Africa. And the way our curriculum is set up is that students learn the history, a little bit of the geography, history, economics, and civics of each of the regions that we do. That's actually also how our textbook is set up from National Geographic. And for this Africa unit, we start by creating a map of the region, of the whole continent, and then we learn a little bit about the history, specifically the rise and fall of early African empires, which I can honestly say most of the students had never heard of, and also get a little bit into then European colonization. But we like to focus a lot of our time on global issues, meaning identifying problems and then having students identify problems and look for solutions, and then take informed action on how they can help make some sort of impact. So as far as one of the early things we do, we're actually starting this tomorrow, is the Crises in the Sahel. And in this specific part of the unit, the Sahel, for those of you who didn't have a geography teacher like us from Fairfield, is a transition zone that sort of divides North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa. It's right below the Sahara Desert. And one of the compelling questions from our unit is, how has the very geography of Sub-Saharan Africa affected people's lives? And so, we start to examine through our own essential question, how does climate change, desertification impact the people and environment of this region? And so students, in conjunction with the library media specialists, we have a great team at Ludlow led by Nikki Callahan. They learn to develop good supporting questions with her help. They also learn to evaluate sources of information, which we think is one of the most critical skills. We do something we call high five the ABCs of source evaluation, and we call it ABCs because they're looking at the authorship, the accuracy, the bias, the currency of how recent or not recent it is, and also the connection to their topic. So after they've done all their research, they create a final product, which is an informational brain pop video in which they're explaining what the problems are that the people are facing, but also, and this is always the key in what we do, what are some potential research-based solutions to the issues? And this is what we feel like empowers the students and gives them something, taking action, which is such an important part of it. So We take them a little bit further in this unit by looking at that second question: how has conflict and government instability slowed economic and social development in this region? Some of the materials we use to investigate that is through the basically looking at the Sudanese Civil War. And for those that might not be familiar with the Sudanese Civil War, that sort of came to an end around 2005. The Lost Boys of Sudan are sort of the big names that come up during that. And we read a book called A Long Walk to Water, and we also watch a National Geographic documentary called God Grew Tired of Us that tells their story. And it's an inspirational story of this group of young men and boys that became political refugees after fleeing violent attacks and civil war in their country of Sudan. Political instability, civil war, modern-day genocide is considered by many and historians, and caused hundreds of thousands of people to flee from their war-torn region. Unfortunately, as I've always said to my students, this is a refugee crisis is not something that just happens. It continuously comes up in history. And here we are again, right, in a different way. And we try to make those connections with Ukraine and things that are going on today. So after many years in these camps, the Lost Boys resettled, some of them in the United States, and that gave them an opportunity for new life and new opportunities in the United States as political refugees. And it's through these stories that the students learn not just about the life of a refugee, but the toll that water insecurity takes on the people in the region, food insecurity, and the importance of how building wells in the community can bring water that impacts the lives of females and especially young girls. And we've had the great honor of being able to host one of the men from the film at our school. They come to talk to the kids and to work with the kids, and his name is John Dow, and he teaches them, gives them more opportunities to ask him questions. So in 7th grade, we've prided ourselves on that fourth dimension, which is taking action. They've been able to participate in fundraisers through the Peace Corps, Water for South Sudan, the John Dow Foundation. We just give them opportunities to be a part of the solutions. Before the pandemic, we used to actually also lead students on trips, some to South America and Africa as well. Some of you, again, are familiar with those. And that's really the best that we can do as far as giving them an opportunity to take action, become global citizens. In sort of closing, I just was recently reading about how Google had changed their motto. They used to be, don't do evil. And then it just became, sort of like do the right thing. And so in social studies, our motto is pretty much, make the world a better place. And, it's part of that taking informed action that we try to take quite literally. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Lenny. In addition to aligning Fairfield's curriculum to the C3 frameworks and the Connecticut social studies frameworks, in 2016, Fairfield introduced 3 new courses: Sociology, Contemporary United States History, and AP Comparative Government. So Department Chair Colleen Sousa is here to share her experience with AP Comparative Government.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to talk about AP Comparative Government and Politics. I've been teaching this course for 6 years, and it really is just amazing. I could talk about it all day, so I'll try to be concise. In AP Comparative Government and Politics, we look at 6 case studies that each represent different regime types. So we look at the UK, Russia, China, Nigeria, Iran, and Mexico. This is a contemporary issues course. This is not a history course. It's poli-sci. So really what we help students to understand and really focus on is real-world applications and real-world problem solving. So thinking about that C3 framework, as this is a course for seniors in high school as well as at a college level, we're really looking towards that, the ends of the continuum. So some of the key disciplines and skills that we focus on are concept application. So we take specific concepts such as political socialization, political ideology, managing social, ethnic, political cleavage, and we apply them to the different case studies. We make country comparisons, especially surrounding regime type. For example, how did democratic regimes versus authoritarian regimes respond to COVID? Which regimes had most success in implementing mitigation strategies? Always looking at current events, of course, as the focus. We also look at data analysis. We do various source analysis, and then students are constantly putting together arguments, whether those are presented orally in the format of a debate. We'll do a lot of trials, but also through essay and written form as well. So just to pull some of the essential questions, things that we're looking to answer: how do authoritarian and democratic regimes differ in their approach to balancing freedom and equality? How do comparative political scientists generate meaningful conclusions that can be applied to other countries? And what are some implications of cooperation and conflict within a country's political system? So those are just a few examples of some of the types of questions that we would be answering throughout the course of the year and applying them in different situations. I mean, the elephant in the room, right, is Ukraine. This is something that we're all thinking about and reacting to as humans. And I find myself really fortunate that I'm able to help the students, process this in real time, as Russia is one of our case studies. So just an example of one of the things that I have listed up there, making predictions and testing hypotheses. This is something that our class has been really focused on for the entirety of the year, knowing that this was something that was potentially looming. We've been looking at maps and kind of processing this, especially since November, once Putin started to put those troops in position. So what the class did is we went back and we studied patterns of behavior, things that Putin has done in the past, and we had the students actually write their predictions of what was going to happen, and now we're seeing, whether or not those predictions have come true. So every day, the curriculum changes. I think that's one of the best parts about the course. They will be able to write on the AP exam about the Ukraine crisis, and that's a correct response. Right now, Iran is in the process of negotiating with the United States, potentially another nuclear deal. We're following that conflict very closely as well. Again, that's something that they could use on the AP exam to help bolster their score. So that's the best part of the course. We continue to be kind of reactive and reflective on what's going on in international affairs. So an average day includes kind of going over the news, looking at news alerts, but also importantly, really evaluating different media systems. That's a really big part of our course. So for example, one of our case studies is the UK. So Brexit was a huge part of our discussions, the implications of Brexit, why did Brexit happen, helping students understand that, looking at how the media system of the UK contributed to that, thinking about readers who, their media diet consists of the BBC and the Guardian, and how, their votes were cast for Brexit versus readers who, perhaps read the Daily Mail or the Sun. When thinking about the crisis in Ukraine and really focusing on what's happening in Russia as a response to that, looking at what the Russians are being shown on their media versus what's happening in other places. So current events is a huge, huge part of this course, and that's one of the reasons that I really love it. One of the other things that we really try to do in terms of real-world application is to give students the opportunity to have conversations with experts. So in the past, we have had Zoom calls, actually pre-COVID, so before Zoom was popular, we had Zoom calls with Ambassador McFall, who's now a professor at Stanford University. He Zoomed with our students. He was the ambassador to Russia in the Obama administration. We also Zoomed with Professor Rodrigo Canales. He works currently at the Yale School of Management, but he was an advisor to the Mexican government for the bilateral relationship from 2014 to 2015. Next week, we're actually going to Skype with, or Zoom, with Ben Rhodes, who is currently an NBC contributor. He also was a senior foreign policy advisor, to Obama. He was a part of the Iranian nuclear negotiation. So we're really excited for our students to have the opportunity to converse with these experts.
Thank you so much, Colleen. So in addition to some of the samples just showcased by my colleagues here tonight, there are other ways which we, support the implementation of the curriculum. So we're thrilled, to announce after a 2-year hiatus, all 3rd and 5th grade Fairfield Public School students will be participating in field experiences to the Fairfield Museum that have been aligned with the social studies curriculum. We're grateful to the Board of Education for supporting this assured experience year after year for all of our elementary school students. This month, our 3rd grade students from all 11 elementary schools are visiting the museum, while their students will move through 3 interactive stations. In creating community scavenger hunts, students work in teams on a scavenger hunt by finding clues and answering questions about individuals and families and groups of people featured in the exhibit. In the process, students learn about how people worked, lived, and built our community over time. In the second interactive station, students learn the importance of corn as an American crop that was introduced by indigenous people. Corn was not only a source of food, of course, it was used, its fibers were used for many purposes, including weaving and bedding and making corn husk dolls. Then our students finally move through the museum collection. Students view original artifacts very up close and discover the stories that give these objects different meaning. Collections can tell fascinating stories. So this is currently happening for our 3rd grade students now. In May, our 5th grade students will engage in their Fairfield Museum Assured Experience. We have the old Burying Ground orienteering adventure, as well as the gallery and walking tour. And then finally, they engaged in a Reader's Theater historical burning of Fairfield. Thank you. Since 2016, educators have engaged in a series of professional learning experiences in whole groups and independently. The professional learning experiences have been varied in focus and in length. Some have been in-house, and some have involved working with professional learning organizations and partners of ours. In 2018, program directors Walter Wakeman and Greg Pugliese began working with K-8 teachers on the Inquiry Academy, inspired by the book, Make Just One Change, teach your students to ask their own questions. Teachers began to be trained in the QFT, and Joelle is shaking her head. She was one of the teachers that was involved in that. It's a question formulation technique, and it's to help shift the culture to inquiry learning. The QFT, of course, supports the C3 frameworks. More recently, as far as professional learning experiences is concerned, the English and the history teachers in grades 6 through 12 engaged in a professional learning experience with Facing History and Ourselves. The workshop was titled Fostering Civil Discourse in the Classroom. It was held on Election Day in 2021. We know that students develop knowledge and skills and take civic responsibility when they have conversations that feel relevant to them in their own lives and are intellectually challenging. This professional development was all about cultivating a classroom community that feels safe and brave for students to have and engage in civil discourse. On an ongoing basis, we have, as recently as last month, high school teachers gathered together to examine student work from the social studies common mid-year experiences. Teachers met with their course collaborative partners and used a looking at student work protocol to examine the skills and concepts demonstrated by the students with their mid-year essays. Teachers identified instructional strategies to help students grow and decided what evidence to gather to show student growth in the future. In addition to this department professional development, teachers regularly meet in their professional learning communities and their PERS to design new teaching and new learning strategies. So in addition to examining student work, some other types of evidence gathering are used to look at student growth are, of course, in the next few slides. Thank you. As mentioned earlier, AP Comparative Government, Sociology, and Contemporary United States History were the 3 courses that were added to the social studies curriculum in 2016. This chart on this slide illustrates enrollment for all 3 courses since then. You can see that sociology and AP comparative government are very popular courses in enrollment, reaching 100 students for AP comparative government and hovering around 200 students in sociology. Contemporary United States history, however, has not generated as much traction, and especially in recent years. So currently, we offer 5 advanced placement classes in social studies. So we have AP United States History, AP Modern European History, AP US Government and Politics, AP Comparative Government and Politics, and AP Psychology. The College Board Advanced Placement Exams are achievement tests that typically include conceptual understanding, multiple choice questions, in addition to free response essays, or what we call DBQs, document-based questions. We're proud of our students' achievements on all of these exams. Year after year, Fairfield Public School students, their mean scores, highlighted here in yellow, typically exceed the national and the state average. AP United States History and AP Modern History are featured here on this slide, and we can see that the Connecticut mean score exceeds the national score. Fairfield Public School students' scores exceed the Connecticut scores. Yeah, AP United States Government and Politics and AP Comparative Government and Politics are featured on this slide. Again, these are 2 very popular courses at Fairfield for Fairfield students. Year after year, they outperform the national average when we're looking at mean scores. AP United States Government and Politics and AP Comparative Government Politics are 2 courses that our students can take to satisfy their civics requirement as well. Thank you. Okay, finally, in this last slide, shows achievement scores for AP Psychology. AP Psychology was introduced to Fairfield before the 2016 curriculum revision, as with other AP courses and AP scores. AP Psychology students outperformed their state and countrywide peers. 2021 was the anomaly. It's something, we're looking into. As you can see, there was a big dip in AP Psychology scores in 2021. Another thing worth noting is, despite the fact that AP Psychology is open to just seniors, it's not open to juniors and sophomores at this time, and it's a full year course, and it's an elective course. It still has about 6 to 8 sections each and every year. The next question is, what are the next steps that we are considering as we move forward? And one aspect of Fairfield Public Schools curriculum status update involves making the necessary adjustments to satisfy state and national shifts and requirements. There are a few legislative decisions that will impact K-12 social studies curriculum moving forward. For example, the new Black and Latino Studies course, which commences next year. Teachers that will be teaching that course will begin their site visits of pilot schools in a matter of a month. And they'll be engaging in the week-long training offered by CERC this summer. Public Act 21-2 directs the State Department of Education to develop a model curriculum by January 1st, 2023, that boards of education may use from kindergarten to grade 8. The model curriculum will include, but is not limited to, the following topics that relate to social studies: Native American Studies, Asian American Pacific Islander Studies, Civics and Leadership. So this is a little bit different. While the Black and Latino Studies course was more prescriptive in nature, these topics are integrated into the model curriculum for grades, K through 8. So there's much more flexibility. Moving forward, we plan to develop a social studies subcommittee to work with ELA on their curriculum review process, which is going to begin this year, so that we can identify additional entry points for interdisciplinary work and embed social studies skills and knowledge into ELA informational units as well as historical fiction reading units, especially at the elementary school levels. The social studies department will continue to expand curricular coursework that reflects the diversity of our student body. As stated in our district improvement plan, by June 2027, all students will engage in culturally responsive curriculum, instruction, and assessment as develop a sense of belonging in Fairfield. Finally, we will also continue to strengthen the vertical and horizontal alignment of our standards-based curriculum that grows students' proficiency in concepts and skills, and that also coincide with Fairfield's academic expectations and our vision of a graduate. All righty. Oh, we're here already. Did we skip a slide, I think, Joelle? Sorry, this is the second to last slide. I am sorry. We're almost there. Okay. In addition to designing new courses that satisfy the ever-changing needs and interests of our students, we would like to expand when courses are offered. The enrollment data shows just how popular our social studies courses are, yet more flexibility for students when scheduling coursework is needed. For example, AP Psychology and Psychology are very popular elective courses, yet they're only open to seniors. So psychology and sociology have practical use and value, and we want our students to engage in this learning earlier in their high school careers. And by opening up the electives to juniors and even sophomore students, we can spread their college-level coursework over years, therefore diminishing the level of stress that students may be experiencing when they're trying to cram college-level courses only into their upper as juniors and seniors. We'd also like to continue to grow our early college experience dual enrollment opportunities. This year we initiated a dual enrollment early college experience partnership with Sacred Heart, and would like to continue to grow that. Our students benefit when we can provide them with opportunities to earn college credit at a nominal cost, and do so by attaching their credit earning potential to their final course grade, rather than one high-stakes exam at the end of the year in May. So Sacred Heart's ECE courses earn accreditation too by course, not by teacher or instructor. So students have the potential to earn that college credit regardless of who they take that course with, and that's important. Again, we want to build student agency. Really the pinnacle and the purpose of social studies education is to empower our students to be change makers and engage them in the community and be active citizens. We will continue to inspire our students to see themselves as problem solvers with the performance-based assessments that we encourage our students to master. And I just want to go to one of the first slides. We're ready to go. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I end with one of the first slides. Yeah, no, that's all right. We're looking forward to forming a pre-K through 12 social studies team to work very closely with the representative from the Board of Ed, the curriculum representative, when we move forward into the review phase, which is illustrated once again on this chart in 2024, 2025. At that time, we'll engage in an extensive amount of research and by collecting information and data from all of our stakeholders, as well as delving deeply into newly created state requirements and national standards that will inform our work. And we're looking forward to that. And in closing, I'd just like to thank my colleagues for being here tonight. And showcasing some samples of student work and your work, very much appreciated. I'd also like to thank all of the social studies teachers and their partners, their Library Media Center partners at home, for all of the work they do each and every day. And thank you for your time. We're happy to answer any questions that you may have for any of us.
Thank you for the presentation. Mrs. Gerber, you have a question?
Yeah, thank you very much, all of you, for your presentation. And, you know, the history classes that my kids took were just really so fantastic, and they learned so much, and it really prepared them so well for college. So thank you, and this is really great. One thing I was a little concerned about, or just curious, I guess, is just this decline with the contemporary U.S. history. Do we have any sense of why it's kind of gone down, and are there any concerns that at some point there just might not be an interest in continuing this course? It just seems like it really hasn't turned things around, and obviously the other ones, you know, are doing quite well. So I'm just curious if you had any insights.
Yeah, and you know, I'll have Colleen Sousa chime in a minute. But you know, that it's interesting. You know, that line graph is very interesting. And in conversations that I've had with House principals, with Greg Pugliese, who was the director of social studies when this course was introduced, and some of the social studies teachers at the high school level, anecdotally, we'll come to a couple of conclusions. One of the things is, you know, I think our teachers do a remarkable job in taking history and connecting it to the modern world and contemporary issues of today. And one of the others, so, and that, you know, we have so many offerings that deal with, you know, modern history, contemporary history. One of the things that seemed to be a barrier that seemed to get in the way of enrollment was when student, you know, registered for this course, they thought that they were going to get a civics, they were going to satisfy a civics requirement. So it was a half-year elective. They thought they were going to get, you know, satisfy a civics requirement. And we know that sometimes when our students get to junior and senior year, you know, they feel like they're running out of time, and there's so much that they want to take. And it's a matter of killing two birds with, you know, one stone, taking something that is contemporary, that's related to civics, and satisfying a requirement simultaneously. So that seems to be, you know, what we're hearing.
So civics, I think, is the main stumbling block. Civics is a requirement for all juniors and seniors. They have to take at least a semester of civics. So a lot of them just conveyed to us that they didn't really have the room in their schedule to fit this in when making the choice between this elective or a half-year psych or a half-year sociology, with high school population certainly had a bigger draw. Additionally, they just come out of, as juniors, a full year of U.S. history, and the U.S. history curriculum at all levels from college prep through AP gets into the modern era. They go right up to the present. So some students felt like it was redundant and then chose to take a psychology or sociology or to fulfill their civics requirement. But I think that the civics requirement is probably the biggest barrier for enrollment in that course.
I guess it's a circle back then. So do you think at some point this course might not be warranted if there are so many other courses that, you know, provide the same or different needs for the students that, you know, as good as a course as it is or may be, it just, there isn't a place for it? I'm just kind of curious if you think, you know, how long do you kind of wait to see if the curve starts to go back up again?
Yeah, you know, it hasn't run in the last 2 years. So I don't think it's going to be revived. I think it's just a message from our students to provide them with something else.
And then just one other question. So just speaking of student enrollment, I was just curious, do we know yet what the enrollment numbers look like for the African American, Black, Puerto Rican, and Latino history course? Do we have any sense of where they are?
Yeah, I just heard, I'm trying to, I know we have one section for each high school. I haven't seen the numbers, but I heard there's 22 enrolled at Ludlow as of today. Colleen, was that you that shared that with me? No. it wasn't. There's 22 or 24 enrolled at Ludlow, and the last time I checked, which was a few weeks ago, so I'm sure it's changed. It was 17 at Ward. So yes, very
you.
excited.
Yeah.
Ms. Guernsey?
Hi, thank you so much for this presentation and for all the work that you do to make history alive for our students. I just had one quick question about next steps. You mentioned that you're developing the social studies subcommittee for the ELA curriculum review, and I'd wondered, is that something that you've done before? Have you had subcommittees for other curriculum reviews? And then can you imagine that this type of subcommittee would be important for other areas of study and other curriculums?
So because I'm fairly new to the district, I'm not sure if that has taken place in the past. Mike, would you?
Yeah, we'll give that to the superintendent.
That's a great question. And no, we've not really done that before. I think that the direction of the district and the interest in bringing the curricular areas more together and the collaboration we're trying to promote across departments, I know that's very much a focus of both of our high school staffs. I think what we've always identified as the natural connection between social studies and English language arts, this is a great opportunity to do that, because the skills that students acquire need to be developed in all curricular areas.
Thank you.
Ms. Maxinelli, follow up?
Yeah, just to follow up on that, every time we have the curriculum come up, what's always come out, for example, when the music curriculum came up, and we asked the teachers, are you finding ways to embed social studies curriculum or cultural ideas in the music that's being taught, et cetera? And what's always come out is the notion of it depends on the building. And it involves staff independently choosing to do this. So I do commend you for having an actual formal subcommittee to fulfill this. I do think that's fantastic, to make sure, and ensure that horizontal alignment. So I think this is a great addition here.
Credit to Ms. Oliver and Dr. Swingler and Ms. Holcomb really for putting this together. Agreed.
Yeah, and I want to just piggyback on that. I think I've shared with the board when I was in high school as a senior, AP European History, AP European Literature, and AP Art History, all three together. And it was such an amazing experience just to see the world through all those different vantage points. So I'm excited for the work moving forward on this. Ms. Maxinelli?
Yeah, just a few other follow-ups. One question I had, the first of your questions for the guiding questions were what changes were made to the social studies curriculum. And unfortunately, while I loved hearing about the units at the 3 different levels, none of it answered the question. So I was wondering if we could hear more about, the idea of the status update is to hear more about where are you seeing issues in the curriculum as board approved, and that a unit has been added or a change has been made reflective of what the staff has perceived as a necessary change. And so I was wondering if anyone could speak to that, again, the idea of changes, because that's not what I heard.
Yes, thanks. Very good question. So as far as the board of approved curriculum, there have not been any significant changes to the number of units, the courses, the number of units, the essential questions, the enduring understandings, what students should know and be able to do at the end of each course. We have had shifts in the implementation. So, for example, and Colleen and Lenny can speak to this a little bit more, I'm sure, if they'd like. But we have moved away from more traditional types of exams. So, for example, if you go back and you look at some of the exams that were utilized prior to 2016, or early in 2017, 2018, we would have, summative exams or summative assessments that would have like fill in the blank, multiple choice, true, false. We've moved more towards the performance-based assessments as a common practice. So I would say that's probably the most significant change that we see.
I can add that COVID certainly posed a challenge in terms of content. So one of the changes that we've had to make, for example, is in our Global Studies program, which is a 9-10 program, during the 1920 school year, when we all went home, some of that curriculum, for example, in the 9th grade wasn't able to be covered, so we had to shift that over to the 10th grade. So the 10th grader teachers, I'm a 10th grade teacher as well, had to pick up an extra unit and kind of retool the way that we covered it. Some other things that we've been looking at is re-examining, perhaps instead of laying things out with a chronological approach, especially with that freshman course, moving more towards a thematic approach. However, the basics of the curriculum in terms of the compelling questions and the skill and content objectives, we are continuing to cover them. It's just the way in which we're approaching covering them is shifting, especially in line with the C3 inquiry standards. We're moving, as Ms. Oliver was talking, moving more towards inquiry-based assessments as opposed to the more traditional pen and paper tests only. Sometimes those are still used, but they're used in conjunction with more inquiry-based, project-based performance tasks as well.
Thank you. Definitely understanding that realignment was kind of what I was wondering about. I do have to put my support behind, however, that there is a value to knowing stuff. And I hope that that is not being lost in this, because students are very good at having opinions, and they can also be really good at not supporting them and not having that foundation, because good questions are formed when you learn things and have questions about them. So just understand, I do enjoy absolutely recognize the value of inquiry-based learning, but it has to start from a place of knowing stuff. So just understand, I still like to hear about that part of it. So thank you for that, about the questions, and for the elementary school. And I was wondering, as you speak to the global, one thing I have been curious about, because obviously when this review comes up, I'm sure there's so much that gets on the table that you have as options. I don't know if you know this, but how common is it that U.S. history is a junior year course versus sophomore year? A lot of the Fairfield County districts that I know have it as sophomore. They do the global as 1 year. And do you see that as being a possible, at least, point of examination of that 6 through 10, 6 through 11 continuum of moving where we do global, how we do global, moving it down? Because then obviously that notion of new courses would really explode in terms of that potential if U.S. history moved down. But is that something that is being talked about at all?
Yes, and one of the things that we did in preparation for the status update is we reached out to the 6 through 12 social studies teachers and, asked about that question. Do we feel, and this is the preliminary, process here. Yeah, and we have to be open to that, some shifting and moving and taking a step back and seeing what makes sense.
Okay, thank you. Last thing, and I'm not sure if I threw the chair to Mr. Cummings, if you're the one to ask, or Dr. Zavajancic, but I know when we get the data points, as a board, I'll speak for myself. I'm not going to say the board is always interested in, but I'm always interested in the DIRG and the county data. Seeing how we compare nationally, seeing how we compare Connecticut, those are the scores I expect. But knowing that we're surrounded by peers that we could, possibly have PD that collaborates with them, and just understanding how other districts are approaching these courses and everything, that when we do get data, again, I'm a little bit more interested in hearing how are we doing compared to our peers here locally. But I don't know if that's something that's easy to pull together. If it is, I would be interested in seeing it. If not, then that would just be my point for the future.
We can look into that. I know that in the past when I've tried to get that level of data, it can be difficult because you don't necessarily get it on the reports. The data is so localized, and AP will give you both the state and the national averages. You really are dependent on the generosity of your peers to fill out a grid.
Mr. Asa.
So just a couple questions here. I appreciate Mrs. Maxon Kennelly asking. My first question was regarding, what changes were made in the social studies curriculum in 2016. That predates my time on the board. So with regard to the updates, the awesome updates that were given by our teachers, right? And I might be a little biased to Riverfield. But knowing what's coming for my kids, I'm stoked. And it makes me question, though. So some of the things I heard were investigation exercises, print and digital sources, working collaboratively in small groups, Google Slides, presentations, posters, essays, presenting to those outside of the class. And then I heard podcasts on indigenous people, right? So I guess my question is, while that's amazing, is that the same thing that's happening at all 11 elementary schools?
One of the best things that happened when we did the social studies update in 2016 is the implementation of shared experiences across the elementary schools. So the work that Tara and actually Donna Pierpont, her grade partner, is also here tonight, do in 4th grade is you'll see consistently across buildings. The podcast was cross-curricular, and that's part of the work of the library media specialist. And while you may not see podcasts in every building, what you will see is a robust, technology infused cross-curricular activities and learning opportunities that would be across all 11 schools. Now, would I love to sell, would I love to be seeing podcasts in all 11 schools? I absolutely would. But that's a comfort area that I have. But the skill set, students being able to research, read, investigate, write informationally, and then share that learning, that skills, those transfer skills, that is something that would be happening, I can speak to consistently across the library media program.
Okay, and that's good to hear because one of the things that we've really been talking about in the last few years, especially is educational and curriculum equity, right? So we're doing the same things at the different schools. So I'm happy to hear that answer. And then I guess I would ask the same. So I don't know if it just happens to be a coincidence that all the teachers here tonight are from one side of town or whatever. But I guess I would ask the other two teachers: is the same true for the examples and the work that you gave? Is that the same experience that they're having at Ward, that they're having at Tomlinson, that they're having at Woods?
I can speak to that as well. So for my AP Comparative colleague, I have two, another at Ludlow and then one at Ward. We share a Google Drive. We share all of our assignments. We share tests. I just had a meeting with my Ward counterpart today, and we're both testing on Iran this week. Additionally, I had a picture up there. We run a trip to Europe for both Ludlow and Ward students. Hopefully that's coming back next year. But we really work together closely to make sure that students are getting the same experience. And that is the same for my Global Studies course and my AP Euro course as well, working across town.
Hi, yeah, I can speak just to the middle school experience. Similarly, we have a shared Google Classroom between all 3 schools. So we share lessons, we share materials. I know they do a long walk to water. In the example that I just gave tonight, all the schools do a long walk to water during this unit. They all use God Grew Tired of Us, the National Geographic documentary as well. So we try to share resources amongst all the buildings. We try to be fairly aligned in the way that the materials that we have and the materials that we use. But of course, I think there are going to be some differences in just how teachers deliver some of the material.
Okay, thank you for that. And I would like to say that I'm super excited that the field trips have resumed. I was fortunate enough to chaperone one of the 3rd grade trips recently.
It was great seeing you there.
To the Fairfield Museum, and what an experience. I mean, that was the first experience I had as a parent experiencing what these kids are learning, and it really was not just a fun and so great to see them smiling and masks off and just being kids, but there was so much education delivered to them in a fun way, so that was really positive. I have a couple more questions. With regard to the model curriculum that PA 21-2, where it says that may be used by boards. I'm just curious on your thoughts of where that's going, and do you plan to look at that prior to us reviewing this again in 2025?
Well, I'll let Dr. Zavajancic answer that question.
So the model curriculums are currently being developed and put on Go Open CT. We always look at, the math is up currently. They're working on ELA. The social studies requirements, there's 4 or 5 topics, I would call them, that are supposed to be integrated within the model curriculum. We always look at open resource documents that are available to us. It doesn't mean we'll adopt them fully or entirely, but we do look at, you know, what those groups have made and what might benefit the district when we go through a review.
Okay. So no plan at this point to, we'll leave it at that. And then you talked about the electives that were specifically for seniors and the idea of trying to open those up to lower classes like juniors. And I'm just curious, especially like, for example, the psychology that has a high level of interest with 6 to 8 sections, and the idea of opening that to other grade levels, would we be looking at significant FTE implications, or how would you handle that? Because, you know, that idea is interesting, but I'm curious how the existing teachers would handle that workload.
So, yeah, and I mean, well, that was an interesting start. Yes, we, again, want to tend to the needs and interests of our students. And what is happening is we're watching the registration numbers. And of course, unfortunately, we're in a situation where every student that registers for a course cannot be enrolled in the course. And it can be for a variety of reasons. One of the reasons could be, you know, we don't have the FTE to satisfy. That sometimes it's simply just the scheduling alone that creates conflicts. I think that we need to take a look at the courses that we offer, right, and see that contemporary United States history course, for example, seemed to be duplicating some of the course offerings that we had previously. So as far as the implication is concerned, of course, we're always concerned with FTE, but we have to just take a look at the enrollment numbers, the scheduling, and take all of those things into consideration.
Thank you.
Ms. Jacobson?
Just piggybacking on Mr. Ace's question about CSDE, just as a point of a fact that the CSDE is requesting a year extension on that to 2020-24. Don't know if they'll get it, but I presume they would. But just that won't be completed at least until 2024, according to them.
Any other questions? Thank you for the presentation, and thank you to my children's former teachers. Your classes were definitely a favorite. The trip as well, Ms. Sousa.
Thank you very much for your time.
Yes, and I just want to say, I think a testament to our students in terms of these classes producing active citizens. I think if you just look at our kids and their activism, they're out in the community volunteering, they're just, Ms. Jacobson and I were on a call for public comment for the Education Committee on Friday, and we had students. It was so exciting to hear our students give testimony. So I want to just share that with you and thank you for, I think that a lot of that starts in the classroom. So have a nice evening, and thank you for all your work. Okay, we're moving on to old business, approval of UConn research study, an institutional view on high school reading programs. Can I have a motion that the Board of Education approve the UConn research study and institutional view of high school reading program? Ms. Jacobson, second by Ms. Guernsey. Any discussion or questions? Ms. Maxicanelli? Okay, seeing none, we'll take it to the public. Any public comment on this? Seeing none, back to the board for a vote. All in favor? Mr. Telly, Ms. Jacobson, Ms. Guernsey, Mrs. Gerber, Mrs. Vitale, Mr. Asa, Ms. Maxicanelli, Mr. Peterson, Ms. Kelly. Motion carries 9-0. Thank you. Okay, moving on to update middle school block schedule. Dr. Parrish? Mr. Cummings, I don't know if you had any introductory remarks or if we should just.
Just really briefly, as our administrators, Dr. Parrish, are coming up to the table, we had, last time we were in front of the board, we provided, we said we'd be back to provide an update on the implementation work. And the principals are here this evening to speak to what the next steps of that work will be, and it begins soon. And I should also point out that Mr. Goodison has joined us this evening. Thank you, Mr. Goodison.
Thank you, Mr. Cummings. So yes, we are joined tonight by our principals and our assistant principals from our middle schools, as well as our special education coordinator for the middle schools, Mr. Goodison. And so we are here today to bring you up to speed on some of the things that have already taken place with respect to the middle school block schedule implementation, as well as things that we have that are forthcoming. Next slide. So just to recap before I turn it over to our leaders, just these were the principles that we were looking to make sure that we continue to carry forward in our planning and implementation of the block schedule, and making sure that any changes that we make this year, next year, or in the years to come are bound by these guiding principles.
And to update the timeline, since the last update to the board, we've been in constant communication and collaboration with the teachers and students in an effort to prepare everyone for the transition to the block schedule for the 2022-2023 school year. We presented a webinar for our 5th through 8th grade families on February 24th. A recording of that and documents are available on our websites. We will be running our pilot days, and that will be starting tomorrow through the 17th. We're doing all 7 days of the schedule. One big adjustment that I'd like to highlight is that we've decided to make, after extensive conversations and collaboration with our teachers, our staff, families, central office folks, we've reflected on the input, and all the input that we've received, and we've decided that we will delay a full implementation of the WIN period as we presented to you last time until the 2023-2024 school year. So I have a little more information about what that means. We're fully committed to collaboratively developing the most effective intervention system and implementing it in the 2023-2024 school year. The administration and the teachers agree on this, and we will also work to enhance Tier 1 interventions this school year, this coming school year. And Tier 1 intervention strategies include instructional adjustments that teachers make in the classroom in the moment to meet student needs. February 17th, we'll be doing, we did a professional development, and that was presented by Dr. Vince Mancuso. He's from the Bureau of Education and Research, and that was session 1, and that was really effective. He presented strategies on strengthening student learning in the block. And if we go to March, we specifically ran some programs for the students to help them get ready for our pilot days. We did help sessions during homeroom to help the students create schedules for these pilot days. We had students cross-reference their schedules, their current schedules, with the block schedule in preparation for the pilot days. We've collected feedback. We will collect feedback from our 7 pilot days, and we'll make the necessary adjustments. On March 22, the second session with Dr. Vince Mancuso from the Bureau of Education and Research, he will present practical teaching strategies for teaching block classes. And then on March 30th, we'll follow up with our families at each of the middle schools and present information sessions on all of the information that we gather from the pilot days. Going into April and May, we will share more information with our incoming families about the schedule and other typical orientation information. We will have PD continuing with our faculty and staff. Taking us into June, we will make final adjustments. We will continue to communicate with all of our families, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade families. We will communicate with our incoming 6th grade families as the 6th graders visit our schools. We will continue to have the PD plan and communicate that out to teachers and to staff. Taking us into August and through June, during the 2022-2023 school year, teachers will continue to enhance their Tier 1 intervention strategies, and we will continue to work collaboratively to develop the most effective intervention system to be ready to be fully implemented in the 2023-2024 school year. And now I think I hand it off to Ms. Tiley.
So I'm going to talk about the schedule framework and some minor tweaks and updates since our last presentation. So, and I've got examples of grade level schedules in some frames ahead. So in the new framework, our homeroom, and for those of you that have experienced middle school, homeroom and what we now call flex time will still exist. That will be a 25-minute block of time. That time will be utilized for interventions and instructions, some small group instruction where we can pull kids. We are currently doing that, and you have also approved in our budget for several of us additional math resource teachers and language arts specialists, so we will be utilizing those resources during our homeroom flex time and other portions of the day. That flex time can also be used for extra help for a student making up missed work due to absences, general teacher check-ins, going down to the art or family consumer science to work on a project, special education learning centers, and the potential for some executive functioning support. Each of our blocks will be a 65-minute block. Students will have 5 blocks per day with 2 periods dropped. So each of 7 classes occurs 5 times in a 7-day rotation, or we refer to those as A through G days. Snow days will not change in the A through G rotation as the high school currently does. We will lay out the calendar for the year, and if a snow day were to occur, we will move forward with the next day, and then we would add on to the end of the year and try to find equity and balance in that. And on a personal note, I'm really hoping that we don't have a snow day tomorrow, but we have, thanks to Tomlinson and some collaborative work, we have a contingency plan for tomorrow if our first day of pilot is delayed, early release, and hopefully not a snow day. For our instructional time comparison, just an update for you, and I want to give you some clarity here. You see a breakout of PE and music versus the core classes, meaning the core classes, social studies, science, language, arts, and math, world language, reading, and any unified arts that meet currently 5 days a week. Our PE, just a refresher for you, PE meets 2 times a week currently, and music meets 3 times a week. So we broke out those instructional minutes. So you'll see in our current schedule for those instructional minutes over 7 days for the core classes, currently is 322. In the new block is 325. For those PE and music, you'll see the differences. Current for PE is 92, music is 138, and this is number of instructional minutes over a 7-day week. In the block schedule, it's 130 for PE and 195 for music. For instructional minutes for classes that meet 5 days per week in a school year, you'll see that increase of 8450 in the block schedule. And for number of instructional minutes for PE and music classes in a school year, you'll see the numbers laid out, 5,070 in the block and 3,380 for PE. We felt it important for you to see the current versus block and an apples to apples in breaking out the 5-day-a-week classes versus those that are 2 days and 3 days. Our numbers of transitions per day are reduced from 8 to 6, and the total transitions per day also is a reduction for us. Oh, thanks. So just to show you some sample student schedules, and again, our staff, assistant principals, and tech tech integrators have done a phenomenal job in setting our kids up for success in this pilot. We've laid out schedules for students. So this is just a sample of a 6th grade schedule. We have a 7th grade schedule and 8th grade schedule. But over the next 7 days, our students will live this rotation, and we have essentially translated their current schedule into what the block would look like for them if they were to suddenly move to that this year. But they will experience that over 7 days. So students have created their copy. Tomorrow when they arrive in homeroom, they will get a copy. Of course, it's middle school. We always have a backup for when they lose it. So we are prepared, hopefully, for a smooth transition to the block pilot tomorrow. I am now going to pass it on to Mr. Goodison to talk about special education and related services.
Good evening. It's important to know there's been careful consideration and planning for the new block schedule with all stakeholders related to special education-related services. In no circumstance will a student not receive services. In fact, all students will continue to receive their special education and related services as documented in the IEP. No student will receive less overall service time. In many cases, probably a little bit more in relation to the adjusted numbers that Meg shared relative to the new schedule. This in no way affects the accommodations or modifications that are prescribed in a student's IEP document, nor would it have a direct effect on IEP goals or objectives, strictly service time. And again, not in total time necessarily, but how that frequency and duration may look relative to the new norm. For parents, which we've articulated during our parent meeting webinar, as well as my discussions at SEPTA, that amendments may be needed in collaboration with our parents to accurately adjust the service time and related service time, again, relative to the block in the new schedule that our students will be participating in. Parents have been reminded, and I'll remind the board, are always welcome to call a PPT meeting if they have concerns about any potential adjustments, and reminding parents that no changes to the IEP relative to this schedule can be made without parental consent or certainly a PPT discussion. None of those changes, again, or anything more than adjustments to what the schedule will look like. And I'm going to turn it over to Anthony to discuss professional learning.
As I mentioned before, we're continuing our work with professional development with the staff. We're focusing on teaching in a 65-minute period over a 7-day cycle. That will require some revisions to the implementation guides, and that work is ongoing in the departments with the pacing of the units, the big concepts that we heard even from social studies tonight, adjusting those based on the different pace that's required in a block schedule. Focusing on supporting students by strengthening overall instruction, by providing in-class intervention, as I mentioned before, about improving Tier 1 interventions. Dr. Mancuso, as he presented to all 3 middle school staffs, really highlighted a lot of the essentials for our teachers, and again, we'll do that on March 22nd, the second session. Practical teaching strategies for teaching in the block. Just a few highlights just to give you a little frame of reference. Teaching in an extended period requires more active learning. As we experienced transitioning to the high school block, we saw teachers doing more active learning. Students were doing more of the talking than the teachers. Students were able to demonstrate their understanding in a variety of ways. Teachers used more of a goal-setting format and a feedback loop. They used active investigation or an inquiry model, more collaboration, developing the classroom as an interdependent community, more hands-on experiences, more varied instruction, planning in more chunks, chunking the activity, moving students from one activity to the next, opportunities for extension, and we will also be sharing, or we already have shared sample block lesson guides. Again, how teachers are breaking up their time, moving students from one learning activity to the next learning activity, and building in more choice And then, as you could see, we have professional learning opportunities that we've already had. We're building in all these opportunities as we move forward with our PD days. You could see our faculty meetings have been dedicated to professional development in preparation for the block. 2 highlights, again, February 17th, we had a presentation for the teachers, and also March 22nd, we had Dr. Mancuso. And then the other days on the building level were dedicated to professional development, and you could see the 3 department meetings, February 15th, and today, and March 15th, the Ides of March, will be dedicated to professional development and support from the department.
Thanks, Meg. As part of moving forward in this process, we want to make sure that all of our constituency groups are considered and that their points of view are collected as we move forward in order to make the best plan for everyone involved. And so part of that has to do with, part of that planning looks like support for our students, but it also is going to look like a feedback loop for us from the perspective of how is this being experienced by our students, how is this being experienced by our teachers, and then being able to field some parent questions at the end of the blocks. The trial run. So this began with last week running homeroom sessions. Mr. Fermato already mentioned this, but our teachers, our tech integrators were just instrumental in making this run smoothly. I think that, honestly, I think the adults had a harder time than the kids did. But they did a beautiful job, and they will be ready for them whether we are in school tomorrow or not. As soon as they're back and we're ready to run the block, the schedules will be there for them. We have these pilot days running through St. Patrick's Day, and then following that, we're going to be getting this all-important feedback. We felt it was really important, certainly, to get the staff feedback because we want to make collaborative plans with the staff. But we also think it's essential that we have the student perspective on how this was to live these 7 days and see how it felt for them to have fewer transitions but a little bit longer class periods. What did that feel like for them? So we're very interested in getting that feedback from them. As of following the collection of that data, we hope to have it collated and ready to share out at our parent presentations on March 30th. It is the same date for all 3 schools. So we will be offering it on site for parents. It will be in person. And we look forward to being able to share the feedback that we receive from our constituency groups at that time. And then part of our normal process for transitioning students from 5th grade up to middle school includes our school visitations. That's going to continue to happen as our students move up to our buildings. This will include a tour day for students. It will also include tours for 6th grade families and a parent orientation. This parent information session listed on March 30th is specific to the block schedule. The parent information session or orientation later on in the spring will be specific to the middle school transition process. We wanted to come back to this timeline just at the end of our presentation this evening, just as an overview that there is an overarching plan and direction that we're trying to get ourselves to. And Mr. Fermato did a wonderful job highlighting all these pieces for you, so I will just end it with the way to success with our ability to roll out this plan is going to be continuous and consistent communication and collaboration with our teachers and staff and students and families. So we look forward to that continued collaboration. We look forward to being able to share our successes as we move forward, and we thank you for your support.
Thank you for that update and for the changes that were made, for being responsive, just feedback that has come at the board table and just from the community. I appreciate, the continued collaboration and responsiveness. So I'll take it to the board for any questions. Ms. Jacobson.
Just 2 quick questions right now. I know that you're going to be looking to collect feedback. Is that ready to roll tomorrow, collecting feedback, or is that going to be at the end? And what is the methods and mechanisms by which you would be communicating how that will happen?
So communication will happen at the school level, but we will all do it in an identical format. The discussion we're having right now is utilizing something very straightforward like a Google form because it's easy to collate, they make those pretty charts. And it's very, very simple for everyone to access and move through quickly. So we can get the data, get it collated, and be able to analyze it very quickly. The thought would be, I think we need to be at least halfway through before we're getting feedback. Ideally, we really should be at the end of it. If we wait until the end, our last day is March 17th, so we would have, that's actually the reason we pushed the parent information session to the end of the month, so we would have some time to collate and analyze that data before we presented it out.
Okay, thank you. And my other question is, when you put music in here, is that inclusive of orchestra, band, and chorus, or not inclusive of that? It is. It's inclusive of all of the strands. Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. That's it for right now.
Ms. Guernsey.
Hi, thanks so much for your presentation. I'm just was really pleased that we kind of paused this, what seemed like sort of a rapid transition through the schedule, and that this is continues to be a thoughtful process. So thank you for that. I have, just to piggyback on Ms. Jacobson's comment about feedback, the other constituency group that I think is important to include in this is parents. So when their students come home, after a day at school, they also will have feedback on the schedule based on those conversations with students, especially with students, our younger students that might have more difficulty relaying that in a Google form format. So just asking if that would be something that you would consider in collecting that feedback from parents at the same time that you're collecting it from both staff and students.
We will most likely, as we did in the virtual meeting that we hosted about the schedule, we'll put something out to parents to gather questions or feedback that they have or things that we need to clarify. But we'd be looking to get parent feedback or at minimum provide clarity for any questions that they have after the pilot week.
Okay, thank you. And then in terms of actually your question about music, to add on that, I'm interested in a little bit more specific information about that, because I know for the students that are double-stranded, so for example, those students that are in both band and chorus or orchestra and chorus, how much thought has been given to those students who, given this new schedule, might be in a situation, I don't know, maybe you can explain, where they might have an entire week, Monday through Friday, where they wouldn't, for example, experience a chorus class. So, looking to sort of this idea of repetition and just the frequency of classes contributing to like the acquisition of these skills, specifically music skills. So could you speak a little bit to that for the double-stranded students?
Are you talking about when the single class meets in the 7-day rotation, you're worried that they're not going to have it for 5 of the school days?
I think it would be like up to 8 days that they might not have the chorus class.
So it is a consideration, it is something that we're discussing, and it will require us to think about in a thoughtful way where that gets placed in the rotation. So it is something that we're aware of, and when we do that planning in the summer, we will take it into consideration to make sure that's not the case, that it doesn't go too long.
Okay, I look forward to seeing how that plays out. I was interested in protecting the needs of our arts. And the last question I have is just about the transition from this pilot, well, actually next year's schedule, to the following year. I'm just wondering, are you able to predict what kinds of changes we would see in the schedule? Like right now, we're seeing this homeroom period. Is it anticipated that that would continue the following year? I mean, how much of it would be, it's just hard to imagine why we're putting it in place in this form if there are going to be continued changes to it, or maybe that's the point. I'm not sure.
I think I'd like to take your question in pieces. The homeroom is something that we actually initially, if you remember, 7 iterations ago, we had shortened it. And following staff feedback and collaboration with our teachers, we decided it actually was important to have it be a longer period. So I would suggest for the team, I'm speaking off the cuff here, that that's not something that we would look to shift drastically. We find the time to be incredibly useful for lots of interventions, and it has a lot of uses, so I can't imagine that homeroom's going to be looking much different. With regard to implementation of the intervention program, I think that's something we're just going to have to wait and see on. That's where we need, we're going to take the sample schedule that we were playing with, continue to work with our teacher constituencies and staff constituencies to get the best schedule possible. And that's not something that's just not something we can predict at this moment. Certainly it would involve a shift in the schedule as it stands right now, in order to get that the intervention piece fit into the schedule.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Peterson.
As a question actually for Mr. Cummings, I think I know the answer to this question, but since we're delaying the implementation period, the implementation of the WIN period, is it going to have FTE impacts relative to the 22-23 budget we adopted?
No, we still expect, and it was mentioned in the presentation, the need exists now for the interventionist. The 0.6 FTE for the schedule change would still go forward.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Ms. Maxinelli.
Thank you. And thank you to Dr. Parrish and the staff who met with me today to talk about the schedule. I very much appreciate your time. I just had two quick questions. With the and I'm sorry if you actually answered it in the exchange that already took place, but with the 57 extra minutes per cycle for music, will that in any way help with not pulling out of other classes for the instruments? Is that, and I know I bring it up every time, so you can anticipate, you might as well give me my own slide on that, because I'm going to ask it every time, but I'm just so keenly interested in trying to solve that.
At some point, I'm going to learn to do the music lesson slide and the recess slide in this presentation. Sorry, Mrs. Kelly, I couldn't resist. So we don't have that the dream of the block just for music lessons. It is possible that we could use that flex time. Possible. Keep in mind we only have so many teachers and so many lessons to give. Also keep in mind that the way our music department works is they rotate those kids so they're not always hitting the same period for lessons. And finally, keep in mind that when they do pull a student for lessons, currently they pull for a 30-minute lesson in a 46-minute block. This will be 30-minute pull for a 65-minute block. So our hope is that kids miss less instructional time and have time to get back for more of the meat of their class than they currently do. So I haven't created the dream. We haven't created the dream yet, but we'll work on the slide.
About it. And then the second part is, as the teachers are working on their PD, the one thing that I recall anecdotally from the high school schedule, which has overwhelmingly been essentially a great success, but that the teachers did acknowledge that ultimately they covered less curriculum, that was a sacrifice. And the difference here, of course, is that your sacrifice is going to impact the high school if that happens. So I don't even know if this is something that staff can respond to, but I would just hope that that's somewhere, kind of in the forefront of their thinking as they look at the implementation guides, that as much as possible that not happen. Because again, there's just obviously you know this, as a significant ripple effect if it does. But I do know that that's what I've heard quite a bit regarding with the high school. And again, it was determined to be a worthwhile sacrifice. But I just hope it's something we're acutely aware of in our middle schools. Thank you.
Ms. Guernsey?
Hi, I just wanted to address Ms. Maxinelli's point about the differences in the current schedule and the block schedule for gym and music. And maybe you can help me better understand this, but the column under current schedule for gym and music is actually referring to the 5-day schedule. So, I mean, it's like apples to oranges there. It's not an increase in total amount of time. Or, I mean, because I don't know. I'm not sure what I'm looking at there.
That calculation is we calculated over a 7-day week. So it's number of instruction minutes over 7 days.
Any other questions? No, okay. Any other questions, Ms. Kelly?
Quick question, and I'll spare you the recess question. So are we pulling out during the pilot days? Are we pulling out for music instruction on those days? Like everything, it's like as if,
It's the schedule will, yes, kids will run their schedule as they do now. We wanted to make the experience as true to reality as we could.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you very much. We'll look forward to hear how, good luck with the pilot days and looking forward to the next update. Okay, we're moving on to new business. Community Partnership Pilot Program with the University of Bridgeport. Mr. Mancusi? Mr. Cummings, do you have any opening remarks, or should we just give it to?
Excuse me, just really quickly, I would like to thank Mr. Mancusi and his team for coming forward tonight. I know they've spent a lot of time thinking about the issues confronting the CPP program and looking to find opportunities for our students. In the work that they've done, they've put the needs of the kids first in their thinking, and I think that the presentation tonight and the work that we're going to do with the community moving forward will reflect that. So thank you, Mr. Mancusi.
Thank you, Mr. Cummings, and good evening, everybody. To my left is, my name is Rob Mancusi, the Executive Director of Special Education. To my left is Amanda Carrick. She is our Special Education Coordinator who oversees the Community Partnership, and she also oversees Walter Fitzgerald Campus. And then to my right, this gentleman is Mike Sanzaro. He is our transition specialist who replaced the longstanding Chris Labrandi. So for those of you who remember Chris. So we're here tonight to review a pilot program opportunity that we have with the University of Bridgeport for this spring. And I say a pilot program for this spring because that's exactly what it is. It's an opportunity for the Fairfield Public Schools Community Partnership Program to partner up with the University of Bridgeport for the spring, and then at the end of that time to determine if this is something that they want to move forward with or that we want to move forward with in the future. The reason we are here is, as you know, when, back in March 2020, when we closed, and when we reopened, we never recovered our site at Fairfield University. So, I will give huge props to Mike Sanzaro for really, looking at so many possibilities to develop partnerships with the various universities around. And we will talk a little bit about that tonight. And I know we've talked about the need to find a more permanent site for the community partnership program. We spend a lot of time in the community, but we also need to have a home base in which to exist. So that's a little bit background on why we are here. For the next slide. Excuse me, I have a paper copy of this in front of me because my eyes can't see that far. So our goal here is really to connect, collaborate, and to expand our community presence for our students, to improve their life and to work on the skills for students in the community partnership on their IEP goals and objectives. Next slide, please. This is just a picture of the University of Bridgeport. It is in a beautiful location on Long Island Sound. This is a 90-second video. We're not going to watch it, but it highlights what their mission is of academic excellence, diversity, social responsibility, environmental sustainability. And inclusivity. I'm going to pass over to Amanda to review the next few slides.
Thank you. So this pilot program with the University of Bridgeport provides us an opportunity to connect, collaborate, and be a part of an already existing community that will offer us a fully immersed college campus environment and access to all facilities on campus. It could provide us with future collaboration with college interns, so they're students working with us. It will provide us on-site job and recreational experiences within a variety of different settings. So we're showing you a few pictures of the different places on campus. This is Wallstrom Library. In there's a Donut Crazy coffee shop and a lot of other interesting things that our students certainly will have access to, and that is just a view outside of Long Island Sound from the library. This is the center of campus where students will be walking to get to their different locations within campus. And on the right is the student center where they will participate in activities of or leisure activities and sport activities and things like that. The athletic center, we do have access to the athletic center. We are working to create a schedule that works around their athletic teams. They just increased their athletic teams and are like a Division II baseball team and a couple other athletics that overtake the availability because baseball is life there, I guess. But they are very flexible in working with us so that we can have access to their fitness equipment, their gym facilities, as well as use the basketball courts and anything that's in the athletic center.
If I can just...
Do you want to hop on there?
Yeah, I just, in terms of athletic facilities or fitness facilities that exist on the campus of on the University of Bridgeport that we would like to ultimately have access to. Currently, our students start their day at their local gyms. That will not change right now because we are working to set a schedule where we can have access to the fitness center. But for now, our students will continue to start their day as they do in their community gyms, whether that be the Edge Fitness Center, the Fairfield Y, or any other local gym that they exercise at. And then they will go from their gym to to our space at the University of Bridgeport.
So again, these are just some more pictures of the grounds and the areas that we'll be using. On the left is Marina Hall. That is where the dining center is located, and we'll get to that in the next slide. To the right is the P.T. Barnum House, and if you can see over a little bit in the right-hand corner is Long Island Sound that also students can have full access to. We will be using, or we have the opportunity to use the cafeteria, both the larger cafeterias and the smaller cafeterias as job sites, but also access to eat there just for at any time that the cafes are open. We will be provided student lunch passes. The student lunch will be capped at $6.50. Currently, our students now, when they go out in the community, they can pay $10 to $12 for a lunch out wherever they may be. So this is a savings. So those are just some pictures of the cafe.
Okay, so as I said, students start their day at their local gyms, and they come right now to Walter Fitzgerald campus, and we use the all-purpose room or the back area of the all-purpose room. And we work on goals and objectives and other activities until around 11 or 11:30 when students then go out into the community to the various job sites. So we will have a location, a dedicated space, which we'll show you some pictures of. We have, significantly more space than we've ever had out in the community at the University of Bridgeport. So those are just some of the on-campus job sites that we've had a commitment to that our students are welcome to have access to. So we will be identifying the job sites that are most that would pair the best with the students that we currently have in the CPP. And these are just some more additional job sites, as you can see. I won't read them. You can see there's a number of job sites. And these are just sample job sites, the library, there's the bookstore there. And then the students will be fully immersed on campus. That's some of the recreational activities that we will have. They do have an on-campus bowling alley. You don't see anybody there now because you do have to reserve time. But that is something that we would expect that we would do, is reserve some time for bowling. Here's some more campus recreational activities that we would have to reserve time. They do have a pool hall, and they have a hangout room they call a jam room. And then this is the dedicated FPS on-campus workspace that we would have. That area in the front center room, that will be removed, that big receptionist desk, so that will allow us a larger common area, so it could accommodate more staff and more students when we're all on campus. There's some rooms here, we have 6 or 7 of those office spaces. They are giving us teacher desks, and they are giving us chairs. We do have Wi-Fi, and we will have a dedicated phone line. We are going to bring in, with Angelus's people, furniture that the teachers have requested that they need for the students into that room prior to the start of, us entering on campus. That's just some additional office space that we will have access to. We have a suite of offices that we're being provided. There's about 7 different office spaces. And so the CPP pilot program at the University of Bridgeport, as I stated, the pilot program offers us an opportunity to connect, collaborate, and to be part of the broader community. We'll connect and be part of a greater community of inclusivity and diversity that provides our students with real-world experiences. We'll collaborate with on-site employment, social and recreational experiences for our students, and we'll be part of a community that will support us, be flexible, and build exciting opportunities for our CPP students. I do have to say, the folks that we've been working with, and Mike initially made contact with the staff at the University of Bridgeport to just start talking about a potential relationship with Fairfield Public Schools. This is back in the fall, back in probably October. They could not be more welcoming and excited to, to do this with us on behalf of our students. They've been, they will be, I'm sure, great hosts because they just, I get emails every day. They're excited for us to be there and to start. And we're excited for this opportunity as well. And like I said, at the end of this semester in June 2022, we will, see how things went. And, we're going into this with an understanding, as they are, that, this is a two-way partnership, and at the end of the second semester this year, both of us will see if it met our needs, and then we will determine if we want to continue this moving forward. But it is something that I'm really excited about. The space, we have a lot more space. We have access to the entire campus. And, they are really, really excited to work with us, and that means a lot to me because they're very welcoming. So the next slide is a couple of slides we put together this afternoon just to show, what Fairfield University offered us in terms of the space that we had and versus what we'll get at the University of Bridgeport. And then also we have a developing relationship also with Sacred Heart University, where we're on campus and have access to several job sites there. Because of increased enrollment and other programming that they have on campus, providing us more permanent space this year was not an option, but, we continue to foster our relationship with Sacred Heart University, and we're grateful for the time that we had on the campus of Fairfield University, and we're grateful for the many relationships we continue to have with Fairfield University. You know, they've been providing us school psych interns for 25 years. We were able to reach out to Dr. Paula Gil Lopez when we had the tragedy last year at the loss of our student, and she did a parent night. She did a parent presentation on grief, a Zoom meeting for us. So that will continue, but we're excited to branch out and develop stronger relationships with the other, institutions of higher ed in our area. So I'm going to ask Mike to review the slides here, and then we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Rob. So yeah, we did want to provide a side-by-side kind of look at the universities, and there has been a great level of discussion continuous with Fairfield University, University of Bridgeport, and Sacred Heart University. So I kind of wanted to do this to kind of give you a side-by-side look at what the discussion points have been. So I did engage with conversations with Fairfield University back in September, and I think this will kind of lay out some perspective for you in regards to what University of Bridgeport is offering. So Fairfield University was offering us one student workroom, one common area for the student work areas. And if we take a look at just some of the other areas, we had access to the student cafeteria, the Barone Center, and common areas, and then the students were receiving STAG cards and STAG buses, access to the STAG bus. That conversation did start in early August. That continued through September and October, and COVID regulations and restrictions were kind of halting the process. If we take a look at the University of Bridgeport, it's going to be a full immersion program, access to the campus buildings, departments, recreational facilities. It's kind of key to think about that because often on Fridays, the students do go out into the community, so we'll be able to, if we wanted to, have access to the bowling alley and pool room and other facilities. We'll have a private and dedicated workspace, as Rob identified, 7 dedicated workspaces, and then we will have the UB lunch card and passes. A key point here is that we're also developing access and an invitation to work with campus activities and events. So the students will be invited to any of their sporting events, any of the additional activities that are going on the campus, which is also key to the University of Bridgeport. Job sites are something that I think that I really wanted to kind of think about and kind of talk to you. So if we're thinking about options and how we're helping students to kind of bridge relationships with the community, I want to draw our attention to this slide and kind of just look at the aspect of what the university is offering. And we think about like the exciting aspects of diversity of the different jobs. So when I was talking with Fairfield University, we had access to the dining area through Sedesco and the athletic center and the laundry room, and possible, but was not confirmed, we could be in the bookstore in September and October when we were discussing. There are 13 different job sites that are confirmed and available to our start effective March 21st. There's no reason to read them all off, but we can see that the diversity of those applications and what they're going to be learning, from a campus bookstore to the engineering department to full immersion into recreation centers, and just the job sites is completely amazing. The other piece too is that they're willing to allow us to have full immersion and collaboration with their college interns. So social workers, psychologists are looking to go in the field. That's something that we can immediately develop and be part of. The other piece that I want to make sure that we're understanding and kind of looking at this is, and I really appreciate what Rob said when we first started the presentation, I really wanted to offer dynamic opportunities for the students coming into the position. So not only looking at Fairfield University, looking at the University of Bridgeport, we also contacted Sacred Heart University immediately the last week of September. That kind of started with talking with Chartwell's Dining Company, and we immediately were giving access to JP's Diner, Abbey Cafe, and a variety of different job settings and internships immediately in Sacred Heart University. As Rob did identify in the other presentation, the increase in student population as well as access to renting space at Sacred Heart was just something that was not available to us in the beginning of the year because, again, COVID in September, they were worried about if the school was even going to be opening, what were those different aspects. That is starting to loosen up, and those relationships are going to continue to develop. The work ahead is really just looking to continue to expand the work at Sacred Heart as well. So we want to build those partnerships, and we want to also have just potential and additional workspaces. The plan, and we think about that, although we provided like a side-by-side, it's impossible to compare University of Bridgeport to Sacred Heart to Fairfield University because they are really individual, unique entities. The opportunities that we have here in front of us is this option to connect and build this wonderful relationship at University of Bridgeport while also being able to have access to the Sacred Heart University is something that we can actually say is going to be an amazing opportunity to all our students. So I wanted to provide this visual to you to kind of see side by side what each of the universities have and what we have in front of us to be able to do effectively shortly.
And just finally, we have approximately 20 additional job sites that students have access to within Fairfield, Bridgeport, Norwalk, or Sacred Heart University that we've not highlighted here that students are currently participating in. So Mike alluded to the March 21st date. We are hoping that could be our start date with a, we want to invite the board to see the facility. And then we have to, I said, we'll have a couple move-in days where Angelus and his guys can help us move in some of the furniture that our staff asked that we bring with us. And then we'll have, University of Bridgeport's going to do an open house welcoming for parents and students and staff with a target start date of Monday, the 21st. Are there any further questions or clarifications?
Thank you for the presentation. We'll start with Ms. Kelly and just go down.
This is quick, and I don't know actually who it's for, but there's no dollar signs or anything attached to this, so I don't know what, if any, the budget implications are.
I apologize. It would be a max of $8,000 for this semester, which is what it would have costed us for Fairfield University.
I'm sorry, so that's for the remainder of this year, but on a go-forward, do we have anything for next year's budget?
I believe there is money built into next year's budget, but I don't recall what that number is. I can tell you if we can get $16,000 or $8,000 a semester, that would be great.
Mr. Peterson.
Thanks. I was going to ask pretty much the exact same question, but I'll the other thing I wanted to say, just a general comment, I really appreciate the kind of out-of-the-box thinking that made this happen. I don't think the people who haven't been there know, but it's a really nice campus, and it's pretty close to here. I mean, you just kind of head down North Avenue, hook a right, and you're there. So after the financial thing, I just wanted to say that I appreciate this thinking. I'm kind of excited about the opportunity. I would love an opportunity to tour.
Ms. Maxine-Kelly.
Thank you. I also had the money question, but to Mr. Peterson's point, what is the commute time? Like, what kind of traveling will our students have to do?
From here, it's about 7 minutes from here. So the commute time, depending on where students are in town at their gym, 10 minutes, 15 minutes.
The point is, it's comparable to the various distances if they're going to Sacred Heart. It's a few, 3 or 4 minutes. Okay, thank you. That's very good to know. And the one thing I'm actually not clear on is what is our relationship going forward with Fairfield U and Sacred Heart? I mean, it's at first I thought when we were getting this presentation, it was going to be the idea that we are switching the program entirely to the University of Bridgeport and trying it out. But those last couple of slides sort of confused me. So now I'm not quite clear on what is. if this spring goes well, what
Bridgeport,
is the intent going forward? And if this spring doesn't go well, what is the intent going forward?
What a typical day looks like, or a day might look like, is students go to their gyms, and then there's that middle of the day where we've gone to Walter Fitzgerald. Or last year, we split up and went to the high school because we didn't have Fairfield University. This beginning of this year, we split up and went to Woods and WFC, and that really didn't work, so we ended up at WFC. So in looking for a home base, this will become our home base, where we will spend that middle of the day, approximately 9 to 11:30, at on campus in our space. And there is a lot of common area spaces that we also have access to, so we don't necessarily have to stay within our suite. We can, but we don't have to. And then after lunch, or around that lunchtime, students will go to various job sites. Some of those job sites could remain on the campus. Some could be the job sites that currently students are at in Fairfield or Bridgeport or the Maritime Center or Sacred Heart.
Okay, so basically, again, assuming that the spring goes well, Fairfield or Sacred Heart would serve as job sites. That's it.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Mr. Asa?
Two things. Just going back to the money question, and I don't know if Mrs. Laborious can answer that, but I seem to remember the number of about $60,000 in our budget for next year. So if you could confirm those numbers for us and get those to the board, that would be very helpful, especially with us going into budget talks.
We can do that.
Ms. Laborious is shaking her head, and that is the number that we had budgeted. Just the board may recall that, and as Mr. Mancusi said, that finding a home base for this program through the pandemic has been a challenge. So we did put money in there just if we needed to rent, if we couldn't find space at one of the universities.
So potentially $34,000 in savings, but you don't know what a full year would be there? Oh, 44.
We asked for $16,000, but those discussions will take place at the end of June, depending on, how successful this pilot program is.
Okay.
I will say they're very motivated to develop a relationship with us, as we are with them.
And Mrs. Maxon-Canelli asked the question about transportation. I mean, these students are transported, currently, and, we've had the need to make sure that bus times are within statutory limits, et cetera. And just to piggyback on that, do we see any potential or worry of having to adjust anything transportation-wise and transportation cost-wise to ensure less than, the statutory maximum?
I'm going to try to answer your question, if I understood it correctly. I think we have an opportunity, like, if we can schedule time for our students to use the on-campus fitness center versus going to the various, fitness centers that they might currently go to, that would definitely reduce time on the van. If, we find that the job sites available on campus, meet student needs, we're still going to keep relationships for job sites with the various job sites that we currently have. But, we have relationships with current or proposed potential job sites that students are not placed at right now because students are placed in another area of their personal interest, or we're working on certain skills that we can work on, that we'd be able to work on at job sites on campus.
And currently, the job sites, are they all located in Fairfield currently, or do we go outside of town?
We go to Norwalk, Bridgeport, and Fairfield.
Okay, so this isn't, leaving town isn't something new?
No.
Okay, and what would you, what would you say to somebody that makes a statement that taking this program out of Fairfield, since we're Fairfield Public Schools, and it's been in Fairfield now, do you have any commentary or color to add to that? And the reason I say is just from comments we may have heard or any emails we may have received.
I will say we will continue to foster our relationships with our current job sites in Fairfield. We love our, when our CPP students come and work at central office. So that's not going to change. This presents an opportunity that, was created out of a challenge. So I think this is worth seeing where this could go, because it has a lot of potential. But like we said, we value our relationship with Sacred Heart and what they have to offer us. So that's not going to go away either.
Well, thank you. And thank you for the presentation, and thank you for the work on this, because I do think there's a lot of components of this that look absolutely fabulous and very promising. So thank you.
Ms. Jacobson.
I'm just a little bit more on the moving costs. Is there anything that we have $60,000 in there, but and you had mentioned needing to move in some furniture, and is there anything else in this space that 60 will cover what we need to pay them plus any moving items? Yes.
The only thing, we don't have to pay for the furniture that they're giving us, or the phone, or the Wi-Fi. No, and we're going to take existing furniture that we currently have in district, and Angela says, man, I assume are just going to load up the truck and bring it over.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Rotelli.
Thank you for the presentation, and thank you for the offer for the board to tour. I think it would be a good opportunity for a lot of us to actually go and get to see where our kids will be and what kind of opportunities they'll be able to take advantage of. And while I'm disappointed that we're no longer at Fairfield University, it's promising that we still maintain a relationship with Fairfield U and Sacred Heart, and we can continue to collaborate with them. And hopefully, I would love to see us getting feedback from SEPTA, our past, current, and future CPP families, potentially input from the new Disabilities Commission that's been established in Fairfield this year, so that we can create and encourage and grow our community relationships within Fairfield and neighboring towns. Because as I heard the superintendent say earlier tonight when we were listening to the after-school program, the development of community relationships is essential for student growth. And I think it's really, it could be a fantastic opportunity, just one of many, because as you said, their work sites are within Fairfield and neighboring towns and, a few towns away. And I think for this population of students, it's very important for us to try to create as many opportunities in the community and surrounding communities as we possibly can. So.
Thank you, Ms. Rotelli. Ms. Corbett, just to follow up on that and the discussions about Sacred Heart and Fairfield University. There were challenges with the universities during COVID. They had protocols that they had to have in place. We were moving forward with keeping our kids in school and engaged. I want just the board to know and the community to know that the conversations with Fairfield U and Sacred Heart are continuing in terms of, because I understand, as a parent who has a child who may one day be participating in this program, of wanting to keep your kids, close to home and concerned about time on the bus. I did reach out to the first select woman last week just to let her know about this conversation, to see if she could also help foster relationships within the community, because as Ms. Rotelli said, as many opportunities as we can provide, both here in Fairfield and in our neighboring towns, I think is very beneficial. speaking from experience, the opportunities for this population have not always been there. So it is very encouraging to hear that the 3 universities that are closest to us are willing to work with us to provide opportunities for our students. So I view this as just one of many opportunities. I don't think that this opportunity necessarily precludes us from trying to continue to strengthen and maybe revive some of the opportunities that have been put on hold over the last 2 years. So just wanted to follow up on that, and Mrs. Gerber, I'll let you ask your question.
Well, you kind of, my question was kind of to be like to say that this is not, what we're doing now, looking ahead at the University of Bridgeport right now, is not shutting the door on other partnerships, which is, I don't want to belabor the point because it's getting late, but I think it is important to know that even if this isn't working at this point, and again, we are just coming out of a pandemic, things are still not normal, whatever that means now, but the fact that we are able to find something, I think is certainly promising, but I think we can't ignore the fact that, just geographically, Fairfield University is smack dab in the middle of our town, and so you have families who are coming from, and Fairfield geographically is a large town, and so you will have children who are going to be coming from different neighborhoods where going that additional time, from here it's 10 minutes to the University of Bridgeport, but if you're living in Greenfield Hill or in Southport or just Lake Hills. Anyway, lots of different neighborhoods. Anyway, what I'm just trying to say is that I do understand the concerns that, not having that central location at Fairfield University could be viewed as problematic, but it appears to me that at this point, Fairfield University, for what the University of Bridgeport is providing, is not able to provide that for us at this time. And that's not to say that at some point down the road they might be able to, or maybe something modified so that we could have 2 different options. I don't know. I think we just have to constantly be revisiting everything, but to know that Fairfield University is not off, being considered, and that we should be circling back with them and with Sacred Heart, but especially Fairfield U because of their location being so central, I think is really important to continue to know that we are trying our best.
We agree with everything you just said.
Mr. Asa?
Yeah, in looking at the clock, we still have some business to conduct, so begrudgingly, I'd like to make a motion to extend the meeting another 30 minutes.
Can I have a second for that? Ms. Jacobson? All in favor? Mr. Tiller, Ms. Jacobson, Ms. Guernsey, Mrs. Gerber, Mrs. Vitale, Mr. Asa, Ms. Maxinelli, Ms. Kelly, all opposed? Mr. Peterson, motion carries 8-1. Any additional questions? Well, we will get some information about touring the campus. I would welcome that opportunity, and I know the board will as well. And in terms of, I'm assuming, in terms of engaging the parents at the CPP, we've heard from them. Some of them are here. I'm sure we'll be hearing from public comment.
We plan on sending out a formal communication to parents tomorrow. We wanted to speak to the board first, and we will confirm the visit for the board, and I will share that with Mr. Cummings to share with you tomorrow.
Right, and I do have other questions just in terms of transportation. I am concerned, as Mrs. Gerber said, about time spent on the bus, and also just some creativity in terms of job sites. If someone's at the gym in Fairfield, is it possible that they could just go straight to a job site in Fairfield? Do they need to go to the University of Bridgeport, and some creative scheduling possibly, be looked at to keep possibly kids in Fairfield and off buses? So just look for that email from me. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. And we'll be in touch about setting up a visit. You guys making fun of me? Okay, approval of policy C1912, 5141.3, students' health assessments and immunizations. Recommend a motion that the Board of Education approve policy C1912, 5141.3, students' health assessments and immunizations. Ms. Jacobson, second by Mrs. Maxinelli. Mrs. Maxinelli?
Yes, thank you. So this is a new C19 policy, which we voted on out of policy to bring to the full board for a vote today. We do have the spring season coming up. We have physicals due coming up. This was the recommendation of the CIAC, so I brought it to Mr. Cummings' attention that I thought that it would be appropriate to have this as a C-19. Again, this means that it automatically expires as of the end of June. Quite frankly, there's a mood on staff that we think this would be a great permanent policy going forward, but at this time, we're not in a position to do that. But again, that's the genesis of this. We're from those February latest guidelines from the CIAC.
Thank you. Any questions for Mrs. Maxon-Cannelli? Seeing none, we'll take it to the public prior to the vote. Anyone like to comment on this policy? Seeing none, back to the board for a vote. All in favor? Motion carries 9-0. Thank you. Okay, approval of minutes. So the Board of Education approved the following minutes: January 27, 2022, February 3rd, 2022, and February 8th, 2022 special meeting minutes. Can I have a motion? Ms. Jacobson, second. Oh my goodness. It's late, guys. January 27, 2022, and February 15, 2022 regular meeting minutes. Now may I have a motion. Ms. Jacobson, second by Ms. Guernsey. Any discussion? Seeing none, back to the board. All in favor? Motion carries 9-0. Moving on to the superintendent's report.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to have Mr. Papageorge come up. Being we're mindful of the time here, we wanted to provide the board with an update on maintenance projects that are currently, the board has had discussion about, move forward. We wanted to give you a brief update on their status as they move forward through the town bodies. Yes. No, this is actually current.
Current.
I'm sorry, Ms. Jacobson, yeah, current.
Good evening, everyone. Yes, these are the current projects, and actually, I was going to also touch base real quick on an older project that's still on the table. I'm just going to run through quickly. I don't know if you want me to go through all the projects and then you can ask questions at the end, or if you want me to stop in between each project. I'm open to do either. So the first one on my list here is the district-wide retro commissioning. The status of that project is it's started at started at Fairfield Ludlow High School. We've done plan reviews with the contractors. We've started to do some TAB, which is the measuring airflows. At this point, we've received information from the contractors, and we're going to look at moving to another building site due to some conflicts with the controls issues at Ludlow High School, not allowing them to do a full undertaking of the air movement at that building. The second project I have, since we talked about controls, is the Fairfield Ludlow High School controls upgrade project. That one is still ongoing. We've met with the town multiple times now, and I received, just as we were coming in here, a email from the purchasing department saying we need to talk further about other concerns with that project. So I'll be reaching out tomorrow to find out what the new concerns are. Fairfield Ludlow High School toilet room, or bathrooms as you would call them, the contract is under review by the town attorney. We've spoken with the first selectwoman's office, and she has agreed to hold a special Board of Selectmen meeting on Monday, this coming Monday, to approve that contract and a couple other ones as I'll go through. Proposed toilet room, Fairfield Ludlow High School scoreboard contract. That's with the town attorney for review. We've gotten some question back as to how we're going to move forwards with this particular project if we do not go out to bid or RFP for it. We've reached out to the purchasing department. We'd like to move this forward using a consortium that the manufacturer is a part of. This is something that we've done in the past. We use consortiums when there's limited time and we don't really feel there's enough time to go out to bid or RFP. This is something that, working with the ad sales company that we had talked about, they would want to get started right away if we anticipate getting this project completed this summer. So that's why we don't feel we have enough time to Fairfield Ward High School Cafeteria AC, that's another contract that will, as long as all goes smoothly with the town attorney, will be on the special meeting for Monday night for the selectmen. This is the old one I mentioned to you, is the Fairfield Woods Middle School Elevator Project. That was approved a few years, 2019 actually, that was approved. It was put out to bid actually in 2019, I'm sorry. The bid came in, we worked with the town to, what we were looking to do was to void out the bids and work directly with elevator manufacturing company and GC the project through our in-house staff so that we could save money to the town by doing it in-house. It kind of got tabled with COVID. We've reached out to him again with this proposal of doing the GC work for this in-house now that we have this elevator, and we also have the Ludlow High School elevator that was approved for a project this year as well. So now we have 2 elevators to get done in a time frame that's very tight for elevators. So we're hoping that we can move that project along as well. Roger Ludlow Middle School roofing project for this summer. That is one of the other contracts that's with the town attorney, and we hope to have on the Monday's agenda. The Burr boilers, as you know, have just been approved by RTM and now have final approval. So we've reached out to the engineers who are actually performing the retro commissioning for the district to get a proposal from them to do the design work, the CA services, construction administrative services, and also the commissioning at the end of that project. So we're working on getting proposals for that one. And the other one we're working on proposals for is the, as I mentioned, the Fairfield Ludlow elevator. I grouped them together. The other thing to mention also is that we did receive information from bond counsel today, and the bond counsel will be written, and we will have the bond counsel and the bond agreement for the Monday meeting for the selectmen to try to move the capital project for the Fitz House rooftop unit replacement along.
Mrs. Gerber.
Yeah, thank you very much. I guess one thing I'm a little concerned about is with any of these projects, is there any concern that they may not be able to be done in the timeline that we had wanted them to be done?
There's actually a great concern for a bunch of these projects to not be completed over the summer months, but we are working diligently with the contractors so that if we cannot get that done over a summer month, that we would be able to work a second shift and move through into the school year and utilize vacation times and time off for students to get projects completed.
Right, and I guess, I mean, obviously, we all know that projects, large projects, medium-sized projects, small projects sometimes can get pushed out for things beyond our control, but there seems to be a bit of a bottleneck right now that I don't quite recall seeing as much in my 10 years being on the board. I'm just concerned, has been there like a change in the way things have been done? I mean, I'm all for due diligence, and I certainly want to make sure that if something's done, it's done right, and that, you know, we get the most for our money. But I do get concerned because things get pushed out and they end up costing more. You know, and so that is definitely a concern of mine, and I'm just curious as to what exactly has changed that has created this. I mean, I'm sure COVID probably plays some role in it, but it just seems like there's a huge bottleneck right now, and these are all really important projects that have been pushed back so many times already that I just worry, especially with the roof. Roofs always make me nervous. You know, but I mean, bathrooms, air conditioning control, I mean, they're all important, and I just worry that not only will these get pushed out and might end up costing us more, plus we aren't getting them done, but then we know there are pages and pages more of projects in line behind them that will also get pushed out and cost more in the end. So just want to kind of get your take on that.
Correct. I can't answer. I would agree with you. It does seem like there is quite a bottleneck right now of these projects. Unfortunately, I can't answer what has changed to create this bottleneck. We're still following the process that we do follow. We go through, we do our due diligence, we work with vendors, we work with contractors, come up with best pricing. If need be, we get bid specs and we go out to bid with projects. So we've been following the same protocol processes that we've been following since I took this position. I don't know what has caused the bottleneck on the town side.
I guess that's my concern. So we're still doing what we've been doing on our end, and then once it gets to the town, then it seems like things have kind of slowed up a little bit.
Mr. Cummings has something to add, Mrs. Gerber.
Okay, thanks.
I would say that, again, I would agree with Mr. Papageorge. I'm not quite sure what the issues are, but I will say nothing has changed on our end, and I would also add that I am very concerned about the amount of time that Mr. Papageorge and now Ms. Laborious are spending on back and forth with the town, because it's taken away from the work that has to get done in the district. And there are times, quite honestly, where we feel like we're in an endless loop around some of these issues. It's tremendously frustrating, particularly because we know that the delays are increasing the costs of what these projects are I mean, I would say my biggest concern right now, just speaking personally, is the roof, because a Roger Ludlow roof can only get done in the summer. We had water leakage in that building over the past year. The roof is there to make that building watertight, and so we're up against it. The Fairfield Ludlow scoreboard. Every time we seem to answer a question, more questions come back that are new questions, and so that is the great source of our frustration. And again, I just want to say, I think Mr. Papageorge and Ms. Laborious are spending an inordinate amount of time in this loop that they did not create, and are trying to do their best to resolve to really no avail.
Ms. Mascanelli.
I mean, to that point, is it possible to propose some kind of summit between central office staff and town hall? And I don't think I'm proposing something that's some brilliant new insight that had not occurred to you. So, but I feel the need to ask it because Mrs. Gerber, I completely agree with Mrs. Gerber's point that it's important, it's expensive, and the future costs for ignoring this or for allowing this to be so delayed could be devastating financially.
Yeah, and I don't want to, I'm trying not at all to be funny, but we have summited this more times than Mount Everest. I mean, it's just, we keep, I think Ms. Laborious is going down, she knows by blind now the route to Sullivan. It's just constant. It's really constant.
Ms. Jacobs.
I want to say we are open to ideas and changes. We've put things on the table.
Sorry, just help me understand. These things have already been approved, right? I mean, so this is literally about processing.
Processing and payments and
contracts.
People, the purchasing department on the town side getting involved, quite honestly, with engineering some of these things without really the expertise to be engineering these things. That's really what a building committee should be doing.
Okay, thank you.
And these conversations will be continuing as part of the facilities committee to have some more board oversight. We're going to be discussing in the finance committee as well. I concur about the summiting, though. There's been a lot of discussion about this. It gets better, and then there seems to be a holdup. I'm concerned about the roof, too. This board knows we fast-tracked that roof approval in August, September, so we could get it out to bid before everybody else was out to bid for roofs, and here we are. But enough with the frustration. Time is, Mr. Peterson, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just have a very quick question. What's the current functional status of the Ludlow scoreboard? I know it's a complicated question, but last I heard that there was somebody going to look at it.
So the current functional status of the Ludlow High School scoreboard is it is functioning. We had a gentleman from the scoreboard company come out. They pulled a transmitter board out of the panel, and they actually brought it to the AD and showed him how if you smell it, it smelled like it was burnt. So they did replace that part on it, and they showed that it was currently working, so we anticipate it being working for the spring sports.
That's great to hear. Thank you.
And any follow-up questions about Mr. Papageorge's report, just, I know, just in the instance of time, just shoot an email. We just wanted to give you a quick update. All right, moving on.
Okay, we wanted to
Thank you, Mr.
provide.
Papa-George.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Papa-George. We wanted to provide an update in response to the Board of Selectmen cut of the budget from 2.5 million, excuse me. We wanted to provide an update tonight to the board on a potential list of, this is a list of ideas, and before I pass it out and lose your attention, I just want to say a couple things. This is, again, a list of ideas. This is a preliminary thinking on the part of the central office administrators. This is a list that will evolve in time. We have work to do. As I've mentioned before, one of the things not on this list is the work that we want to do with our high school course enrollments and potential changes in the FTE at the high school based on what we see out of that, but that information, that data is not yet available to us. So again, I'll say it 1,000 times, the communication to the staff tomorrow, the communication to the community, again, will be this is a list of ideas. But again, I just want to make sure that people understand that this is kind of where our starting place is. This is not where we're going to be ending. So with that said, I will pass this out, and we can discuss. So Boris, would you come up forward, please? While she's coming up, I will say that we will get this posted to everybody so that everybody has availability to see it. We'll work to get that up on the website tomorrow. Boris, could you give a quick overview against the clock here of what we're looking at?
Sure. So we as a team came up with some proposals that totaled to the first subtotal about 4.7 million, offset by some new items that we identified as costs that we'll need to account for in next year's budget potentially, including the departure of our an adjustment to legal services, potentially health insurance, as we mentioned earlier. So that net impact we're looking for, or total reductions, equals 4.27 million. The options are here for discussion, and the board, the first select woman has asked us to come up with 2.5 million in reductions. Briefly, the first one is a special ed transportation adjustment. That's one bus that we do not believe will need any longer. There was an increase to the special ed transportation budget for 2 buses, one of which we, after looking at the need for next year, we likely won't be needing that, so that's an option. Technology capital. Or actually, would you like me to give you a moment to look it over? Because I know there's a lot of information here. Okay, I'll pause.
Can I just, we're looking at the clock again, and also extend the meeting again. Can I see how many people, if you want to give public comment, to please raise your hand? Okay, I just want to make sure that we do leave time for that. So we have 3 members. What? Yeah, we're, yeah, this, can I have a motion to extend to 11:45? Ms. Rotelli, seconded by Ms. Jacobson. All in favor? Ms. Rotelli, Ms. Jacobson, Ms. Guernsey, Mrs. Gerber, Mrs. Vitale, Ms. Kelly. All opposed? Mr. Asa, Ms. Maxicanelli, Mr. Peterson. So 6-3. So we're good. Thank you. And hopefully we won't be that late, but I just wanted to give us the time. All right. I'm sorry, Ms. Laborious. Thank you. Go ahead.
Well, I'm available for questions on any of the items that you see in front of you. Like I said, it's somewhere where we're not going to land. This is just a series of options for the board to provide feedback on that we talked about as possibilities. Yeah, just in the essence of time, I mean, I don't want to go
too far down this road. I'm glad that we have this information as a starting point, but right now, the Board of Selectmen has reduced the Board of Ed's proposed budget by $2.5 million. The budget is heading to the Board of Finance. We are presenting next week. The Board of Finance has the ability to restore funding. They also have the ability to further reduce. So, there's still a lot can change after the Board of Finance. The budget then goes to the RTM. They typically cannot add unless there's an appeal to the budget. They can further reduce. So it pains me to see a lot of things, as I'm sure my fellow board members on this list, but in some of the discussions when we've talked about structural change and areas to look at and FTE, these are the type of things that sometimes get brought up. So if anyone has a quick question right now, Mr. Asa.
Just to confirm, Ms. Laborious, so we're looking at the 2.5 million, reduction, but really we have to consider at the very bottom here the 488,029 in addition to that, correct?
Correct. Until we hear otherwise, what we know now is that it would be 8% and it would be that cost.
So roughly 3 million.
Correct.
Okay. And lastly, with the health insurance, this is based on your most recent communications from Aon, correct?
That's correct, yes.
And any thought to think that could change, or are we looking pretty confident now?
We don't really have much information, nor do my colleagues. It's unfortunate that we don't still at this point. But the state hasn't revealed anything to us about what this will look like. So we usually see the experience of the first memo is what we end up with our premium rate increase, but this is a unique year in that those memos were conflicting, and it was, so no one really knows. We're holding it aside because, to be conservative, we should. Thank you. One other item I'll just point out, tech capital. We had a big technology ask of about $1.2 million. If the board is interested as we pursue discussions, and if the town is so inclined, we could finance some of that capital over the course of 4 to 5 years, which would cause the large purchase that we were needing to do next year and the board approved to do next year over the course of 4 to 5 years. And we can talk about more in future, more detail on that one. And we also, to your discussion earlier, put on here a savings that would be to the town that we would ask for a due to, due from, related to the conversations we had earlier to transfer the responsibility of purchasing back to the Board of Education as an option.
Thank you, Ms. Laborious. And just one other thing to add, just for those who have been following the process from the start, at the Board of Selectmen meeting, when the town reported on the savings to the Board of Ed for the town pension, it was a $500,000 number that was shared publicly. That is, the actual savings is about $100,000, just because our pension number includes the 401A.
That's correct.
Just want to put that on the record. Ms. Jacobson?
That's what I was going to ask about, was where the $500,000 is, and that was not an accurate number then, or just wasn't reflective of our experience. Okay. One other clarification, or one other question. Maybe you haven't thought about this or whatever. I was wondering if when you were deliberating the list, and I know this is just a list of ideas, did we dig deeper into transportation besides sped transportation? I know that we've talked about in previous years and previous conversations about looking at our guidelines and distancing, and did that come up at all? And this, I know I have asked this multiple times now, so.
Ms. Laborious is working with transportation to further refine that number.
Okay, so you are, okay.
And that could become a bigger number as a result, yes. A bigger option, correct.
Yeah, you mean bigger as in better.
I'm sorry, an option to increase the savings to transportation, correct.
And then, I don't know if you have the answers to this, but I had sent you a proposal from the state, Mr. Cummings, and I didn't know if you had any idea about that. There's a proposal that would impact next year's budget, and I just wanted to get an idea of the number on that, which I,
yes.
Right, if not, don't worry.
No, Ms. Jacobson, we, Mr. Mancusi and I talked about that today, and that proposal is related to proposed legislation, right, in social work, and we calculated that could have an impact on our budget of requiring an additional 2.5 to 3.0 FTE social workers. Yes.
Okay. Ms. Maxinelli?
Just one very quick question. This will be posted so that the public can see it?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Laborious.
Thank you.
And this will be to be continued. Anything else to report, Mr. Cummings?
No, I just want to say thank you to the community. We had a very smooth transition into mask optional, and visiting the schools over the last week, and from all reports from the schools, things are going quite well. So I want to thank our staff and the community as a whole, and particularly the kids, for making that happen. And it will not snow tomorrow.
Okay. Any committee liaison reports? Mr. Talley?
SEPTA is scheduling a return of the Provider Resource Fair in early May, so everybody keep their eyes open. We're very excited to bring families and resources together from across Fairfield County. And I know our last one was packed. It was really amazing. As someone who's been to these resource fairs all over the state, it was very impressive. So for all of our families, it's a great place to come and learn about different programs around Fairfield County and things that are available to our students and parents.
Thank you, Mr. Talley. Any other reports? Seeing none. Any open board comment? Ms. Maxinelli?
Just want to give a quick good luck to the Odyssey of the Mind teams who are competing on March 19th from Burr, Riverfield, Tomlinson, and Fairfield Ward. Very excited. We are definitely going to have some teams going to Worlds this year, so you'll hear more later.
Exciting. Congratulations and good luck. Anybody else? Seeing none, we'll bring it to the public. Now invite members of the public to come forward. Thank you for your patience. Just your name and address for the record.
Good evening, I guess. Hi, I'm Kathy Finlaw. I live at 2546 North Benson Road. My daughter Jamie is part of the CPP program. She has an intellectual disability. My big question is, why not Fairfield? Fairfield is our community. We have had a program at Fairfield University for 10 years, a fabulous relationship, many relationships, rich experiences, work experiences, employment for our young adults with disabilities, all done at Fairfield University. We have best buddy chapters there. We have fun. We're invited to events. We have friendships there. And now they are gone because we're not there. We're not there. And I've been asking about this for months. We were told in October we were going back. And then we were meeting, there was a meeting, and then we were told it won't work out. And most recently, my husband and I, at a PPT, we were told, and it was recorded, that an administrator, when I asked about it, she said, Fairfield doesn't want us. My husband and I can't believe it. Fairfield doesn't want young adults with disabilities? What does that mean? What does that mean to anyone that's a Fairfield resident to hear that Fairfield doesn't want your young adult? It's painful. That's what it is. It's unfathomable to me that Fairfield Public Schools cannot take advantage of this rich asset in our town. Pardon me, Fairfield University. Fairfield Public Schools owes the families an honest explanation as to what happened. What happened there? We know that Westport has a pilot program there. We know that there's work experiences with Trumbull Elite Transition Program, and we have none. We have none. We do not have any experiences right now on Fairfield campus. What is the secrecy? What is it? Regarding the pilot program at UB, thank you. for that presentation. It was not fair to Fairfield University. You need input from the teachers that have been doing this program, the transition program. You need input from the parents that have gone through the transition program. I'm sorry, I'm all dry. To tell you how rich the program was at Fairfield University. Transportation this past year has been a nightmare. And I see on the chopping block, one special ed bus is being cut. Students are driving around.
Ms. Finla, I'm sorry, that was 3 minutes. I'm sorry to cut you off. You have to press the button on the bottom. Hold it, yeah.
Hello. Oh, it's very loud. My name is Jennifer Tonelli Biondo, and I live at 485 Roanoke Road in Fairfield, Connecticut. And we've been here a long time tonight. We're tired. We're exhausted. I'm an educator. I'm a special educator. COVID has hit special education really hard. I'm tired, and I could have been on my couch tonight, but with my PJs on. But I'm here because I wanted to voice my opinion of what I feel is truly right. The CPP presentation sounds wonderful. Finally, the CPP is not an afterthought. It's not an add-on. Rob mentioned full inclusion, which is what this generation of kids expect, deserve, and have grown up with. My son has been fully included since he was 3. The program sounds perfect, but it has there's a big exception. It's in the wrong town, or should I say it's in a city. Our community partnership program should be in our community. Fairfield is blessed with 2 beautiful, hustle and bustling colleges. Our young adults with disabilities should feel as welcomed there as they were in preschool, elementary school, middle school, and high school. They should be allowed to learn, mingle, explore, work in their own town, in their own community. The community which they hope to live one day and work independently. Would this board ever send another minority group out of town to Bridgeport? Think about that. Would you ever send another minority group on a bus to be educated somewhere else? People would say that's discrimination. Okay, people would agree with that, but yet the plan is to bus our young adults with disabilities out of town, and somehow this is all acceptable to you. All the questions were about money. Most of the questions were about money. And now I'm ad-libbing because this is not on here. No one asked how the parents feel, how the kids feel. No one's asked how the teachers feel. Think of this, as a parent with an 18 to 20-year-old intellectually challenged child, I should say adult, I would need to outplace my child to CES for him to attend Sacred Heart in his own town, or move to Trumbull or Westport so he can attend Fairfield U in his own town. That's ridiculous. That's shameful. Shameful. Why I applaud Rob and Michael and Amanda for thinking outside the box and their vision of what the CPP could be, should be. A full immersed collaborative education experience. It sounds wonderful. It's what each young adult wants to hear. It's what each parent wants to hear. I'm sure it's what the board wants to hear.
I'm sorry to cut you off. It's 3 minutes.
But yes, I'm.
Thank you.
My name is Nancy Ross. I live at 1410 Mill Plain Road, Fairfield. I have a son in the CPP who, at our transition meeting when he left Ludlow High School, we talked about planning for him. We were told Fairfield University was our home base. We had dedicated space there and so many good things there. And at the time, I remember, and we spoke about it, oh, there's so much potential for growth to even grow more with Fairfield University. They have the graduate program there. It's a special education graduate program with students that could work with our children. How they could be members of the campus community to expand what we already had. And now we're standing here and we have no relationship with them. Our goal is to expand the relationship with them and keep our children in our community. I mean, we were told, okay, COVID, forget about that, a whole year, like down the drain. And I have to say the teachers, the speech pathologists, the social workers, the paraprofessionals, I mean, everyone in the CPP program is great and they're doing like their best with this, and we all were. But in September, we had an email. There's a few glitches. We're hoping to have the contract signed by early next week. That was September 24th. Another email on November 4th. The agreement with Fairfield University is not making, going in a direction that anyone would like. What even does that mean? We can't seal the deal with Fairfield University, yet I read in the newspaper and we find out that Westport Public Schools is partnering with their 18 to 22-year-olds, partnering with a program with Fairfield University, Trumbull, as Kathy said, yet we're sending our kids to Bridgeport, and that's okay. To me, community is the key here. Community partnership program, partnering with the community, and that's not what we're doing here. Just because we had to go out and get jobs outside of Fairfield doesn't mean that that's what it's supposed to be. We're struggling because nobody's giving us jobs in Fairfield. Our kids should be working in Fairfield. And talking about travel time, 7 minutes, I can tell you 100%. My son goes to Mill Plain Road to the Parks and Rec gym, right, from 7:30 to 9. From 9 o'clock to 9:25, he's standing outside the gym waiting for the bus. So it takes 25 minutes to get from the YMCA to Mill Plain Road to get him, and then another 20 minutes to get from Mill Plain Road to Walter Fitzgerald. That's 45 minutes for my son standing around waiting and being on the bus, and they're telling you they're going to get to Bridgeport in 7 minutes. To me, it's beyond belief that we let this relationship go, and we should have, instead of, if there was parent input in this, I would have urged them to
Ms.
continue
Ross,
to put
I'm
their
sorry.
efforts just to keep our
That's-
relationship with the community.
Thank you.
And thanks for your consideration.
Thank you for your comments and for staying so late. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, motion to adjourn. Mr. Peterson, second by Mr. Asa, all in favor? Motion carries. We are adjourned.